All right, I'm ready when you are.
Good.
You're good.
Okay, we will reconvene the special meeting of the Folsom City Council. Mr. City Attorney, any final action to report out?
No final action tonight, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Then we will adjourn the special meeting and call to order the regular meeting of the Folsom City Council on Tuesday, May 27th, 2025. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Council members Leary,
Here.
Rathel,
Here.
Rohrbaugh,
Here.
Kozlowski,
Also here.
and Aquino.
Here, if you'd all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Mr. City Attorney, any agenda updates?
Good evening, Madam Mayor. No agenda updates tonight.
Okay, then that takes us to business from the floor. This is the public's opportunity to address the council on items that are not on the agenda. But please understand that we cannot deliberate or take action on items that are not on the agenda. If you'd like to speak now or on any item that's on tonight's agenda, if you could please fill out a blue card at the back of the room on the table there, hand it over here to the officer, and the clerk will call you up at the appropriate time. So I think we've got a couple coming our way, but Madam Clerk, if you call the first speaker, please.
Okay, your first speaker this evening will be Bryce Burdett. Come on down.
Can we get the other lights on?
Are we missing some lights?
Stand by.
Ooh.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Bryce.
Yes, hi. Good evening.
Hello.
Great to see you. This is just a brief thank you. My name is Bryce, and I live in Folsom Ranch. We're new to the area, and I'm the lead pastor of Beacon Church. We recently put on an event in Folsom Ranch, and the city was a big help. One just small thing, left a voicemail for someone in Parks and Rec, and they called me back, which, you know, when you're planning events, makes a big difference. But they even helped me troubleshoot an issue last minute. So just wanted to say a big thank you to the city for helping us pull off a great event. So
Thank you for coming out, Bryce. That's very nice of you.
Yes.
Welcome to Folsom.
Next speaker, please.
Okay, our next speaker will be Blake Allen, and Blake will be followed by Michael Harris.
Come on down, Blake, right here to the microphone at the podium.
I need my phone, right?
Sure, yeah.
This microphone right here.
Yep. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Good evening, City Council members. My name is Blake, and I am 22 years old, and I have been fortunate enough to call Folsom, California, my home for all these years. I greatly appreciate the work the city does, the council does to maintain and improve the city of Folsom. I understand that tonight that affordable housing isn't on the agenda. I would like to respectfully encourage the council to consider continuing exploring affordable housing options for the city of Folsom. As someone who has called Folsom home for all these years, I would love to see Folsom remain a place for all residents, both new and old, and more options for all the residents of Folsom.
Thank you very much, Blake.
Thank you so much.
All right, next one.
Next speaker will be Michael Harris.
Good evening, y'all. How y'all doing tonight?
Good.
It is, you know what, Mayor, I really appreciated your roundabout way going through town for Memorial Day. I spent a little time just marinating, you know, in the cemetery. And some of y'all know I'm a little different. I talk to dead people and, you know, wonder how we could better honor them. But it's something that, you know, the Civil War is what Memorial Day, how it started. We've been fighting wars before, obviously, Civil War and then after. And so we honor those that are dead on the battlefield. And folks is like, Michael, you just different, man. How are you going to honor the Confederate soldiers? Because they were on the battlefield and they died for what they believed in. And that's part of who we are. So that's, you know, what we've been doing since Dr. Joe and Shirley Moore started Juneteenth here in Folsom, professors at Sac State and part of the National Park Service. And I'm probably not the best person to have the baton in my hand, but I'm certainly persistent and not going to give up. But I'm just going to let you, so the whole month we're celebrating Juneteenth, and at some point we're going to have and we're going to slip it in the ordinance in a nice way. So Juneteenth will be official holiday here in Folsom. It is with the county, and it's not at the state, but it's certainly at the federal level. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, our next speaker will be Kevin Miller.
Good
Hello,
evening,
I'm Kevin
welcome.
Miller. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. So I just wanted to go on record that I was a victim of the pinhole water leak back in me and 1,400 other people back in 2020 and 2021, and of which during the summer of 2020, pinhole-sized leaks began to appear in the copper plumbing pipes in homes located in the city of Folsom. About 1,150 people were affected at that time, costing Folsom residents thousands of dollars. I continue to suffer from that. My insurance rates have gone way up. They required me to put a device on my water line to restrict flows and to monitor it, which is very ineffective. It actually shut off when my wife was in the shower. The app isn't really interactive, but the insurance company insists that I have this on. I paid over $8,000 to have the whole house replexed, repiped, and I've put in a request to the city of Folsom. They waived the permit fees and denied my request of reimbursement. And I've also am now part of the class action suit against the city of Folsom. And I just want to go on record for that. The cause of the problem, if any of the council members don't know, the cause of the problem was unclear. They pointed at all kinds of different things. Different parts of the city were affected, including American River Canyon. There was no clear understanding, except that it came out that the pH and the treatment had been ignored for some period of time. Reading the water report, and so nothing was ever solved on it. It was just left hanging. The value of my house has been affected, depreciation. People are concerned about, whether there's more leaks in other homes. Well, we've replexed, but the insurance company doesn't really want to recognize that because there's problems with the plastic plexed pipe too, like rodents chewing on the pipes and such. So I just want to go on record for that. That's kind of swept under the carpet, and there's a lot of people. We ended up with a $22,000 damage that our insurance company picked up the tab for, and we now are paying that. I mean, in the policy. So we've got the higher insurance as a result of that. So
Thank you very much for coming out.
thank you.
All right, if you call the next item, please.
We have no further requests to speak under business from the floor.
Okay. Scheduled presentations.
Okay, your first scheduled presentation item this evening is item number 1. This is the Friends of the Folsom Zoo presentation of a donation check to the City of Folsom Zoo Sanctuary.
Okay. Should I come down there? We would love to. I was wondering if there was going to be a big check.
Literally and figuratively.
So, Mayor Aquino, members of the council, and citizens of Folsom, I am Peggy Plett. I am president of the Friends of the Folsom Zoo Sanctuary. We were established as the 501c3 or nonprofit in 1981, and we have a very specific mission. So let me see if I can make this work. So our mission is to preserve and enhance the city treasure by assisting in the enrichment of the lives of the animals that are living at the Folsom City Zoo Sanctuary. And we exist really, and our main purpose is to add value to what the sanctuary is able to do. Our goal is to reduce reliance on city funding for zoo operations and to subsidize the zoo's budget. In the last 19 years, we have donated from the Friends almost $2.3 million. That money has been used to provide for veterinary care. We've got macaque Kaylee, we have desert tortoise Lily, and we have the delicious diets that our animals receive. We also have provided specified medical equipment that helps our large carnivores like Henry the bear. We paid to help produce the Barnyard Experience, which has added enormous value to the zoo sanctuary by not only extending the opportunity to include barnyard animals in our experience, but to also create additional space for camps and other activities that help educate the public. And we were able to do things like improve habitats, and we participated in the aviary exhibition or exhibit reconstruction. And you can see peregrine falcon Frank, who is enjoying his new space. So with tonight's donation of $100,000 to the city's general fund, we will now have given almost $2.4 million to the city of Folsom for the past 19 years. And you can see how that money has been distributed. It's not the same amount every year. It's based on a formula. It's based on if we have designated funds that allow us to do something special, like in this past year, we were able to donate funds to rebuild the coyote exhibit, which we hope to have finished very soon. I understand the lodge poles for that came in this week, so we're hoping to get that up and running, and then people can more easily see the new coyote, Benny, that we have as a resident. So as representative of the Friends Board, Rochelle Barcelona and I would like to present to the city of Folsom on behalf of the Folsom City Zoo Sanctuary a check for $100,000.
I will just say thank you. This is absolutely amazing. And you said you want it, your goal for the Friends is to add value to the zoo. And I would just say your value is priceless. We could not do this without you. And I know this means a lot to Jocelyn and her staff. So thank you so much.
It's our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle? All right, fantastic. Next item, please.
Okay, that takes us to our consent calendar this evening, and I believe item number 7 is going to be pulled from the consent calendar.
Anything anybody else wants to pull? All right, then I'll entertain a motion for 2 through 6 and number 8.
Move that we approve the consent calendar absent number 7.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Council members Leary?
Yes.
Rathel?
Yes.
Rorba? Yes. Kozlowski?
Yes.
And Aquino.
Yes.
All right, item number 7 is resolution number 11389. This is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for design consulting services with Leathers and Associates for the Kids Play Park renovation project.
Great. Mayor and members of the council, we're going to receive some information from our Parks and Recreation staff about this item. Thank you.
Good evening, Brad.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. I'm Brad Nelson, Park Planning Manager. Let me pull up my presentation here real quick. So before you is the item number 7, which is the resolution authorizing city manager to execute an agreement for design consulting services with Leathers and Associates for the Kids Play Park renovation project. So as you have, I'm assuming, read in your staff report, we did do an RFP, issued the RFP. We received a total of 4 proposals. They were reviewed internally by the staff And during that evaluation project, the company that came out as number one was Leathers and Associates. Leathers and Associates are the company that did the original build almost 30 years ago. So we feel confident moving forward with our second generation of Kids Play Playground. So just a quick update about our process to date. So the original funding request was in fiscal year 24-25. That was for $1.1 million, and we requested that it be spent over, or provided over 2 years because of the staffing resources. And in 24-25, City Council approved $800,000 with the remaining $300,000 shortfall to be provided through a nonprofit fundraising organization, Kids Play for Generations, Inc., which has since formed as a 501c3, and they're outgoing gangbusters with their fundraising right now. We evaluated the project timeline based on the fact that we have 2 new park planners in the park planning division. We have one of those park planners with us here tonight. Her name is Hannah Perez. She's back there. So we're super excited to have her on board. So here is just a quick overview of the expedited timeline. We were actually able to shave off 6 months off the process, which is pretty amazing, I think. So at the top, you can see we're here, May 27th, City Council award, and then I'll skip through all this sort of detail stuff. Our goal is to start construction November of this year, with the park being open in April of next year, so spring of next year. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
And demolition start on Community Service Day? Is that possible?
It probably could, yeah.
Suggestion.
Yeah.
I like that. Vice Mayor Raethel, you have some questions or no?
Yeah, do we know how much fundraising Kids Play has done to date?
I do not know how much they've done to date. I don't know where they're at.
Originally, this was a community build park.
Correct, back in the 1996.
Is the intention to community build this second generation park?
Our current intention was not to do a community build, but it's something that we can certainly consider. We did talk to Leathers and Associates about the sort of adjusting the scope of work that was in their proposal, and they were very agreeable to do a community build project with us. So a couple things that would do, it would scrunch up the timeline in terms of construction. We wouldn't have to do the project bidding, and there wouldn't be any city council approval of construction cost. During that time, we'd have to coordinate the volunteer group and get their, organize them and sort of get their buy-in into the project.
So we would skip the bidding, we would skip the issuing the project for bidding. We would still need the materials, though. We would still put those out.
We would, so that would take some time too. But I think overall it would, and this is what Leathers confirmed with us too, that the overall timeframe would be reduced.
Be reduced with a community build.
It would be reduced with a community build, correct.
That's interesting.
That's good. What about the cost on a community build?
The cost would be, they're indicating it would be reduced. To what extent, I don't know, because we just looked into all of this today, so I can't give you an accurate estimate, but they said it likely would be reduced as well.
So we could come in quicker and at a lower budget if we do community build.
Yes.
I love that answer. I think I, for one, have been advocating for community build. I really appreciate that. I'll stop my questions for now.
So my question, I'm trying to figure out what question to ask, but so the other 2 full proposals that we got, thank you to your staff for getting that to me this morning. It shows that we can clearly, or the other 2 bids, can build the park for under $100,000. So that's encouraging. And I think so I think, we want to start articulating that we have $800,000 to build this park. What can we do within that means, within those means? did you see anything lacking, say, take the Zoom recreation build out proposal? Did you see anything lacking in that? Their proposal was for $611,000 with another 150 in materials and stuff at the end. But do you see anything lacking in that we couldn't build the park for under 800?
They didn't have the community engagement process to the extent that Leathers does. Actually, Leathers, that's kind of one of their hallmarks of their company, how they came to be. The original project was design build. They have indicated I think they said about 50% of the replacement projects they're doing now are community build, and the other 50% or so are contractor build.
So they would design they would figure out what we would need if we did a community build, which I think is where Justin is going on this. If we use Leathers, that would be the natural company to do a community build. They would do the design on what materials we'd need to order to replace, and they would do all that cost and then go out for a bid for how does that work? How does the next portion work if we do a community build?
So I don't have all the details on that, but the city would be responsible for acquiring all of the materials, and then we would provide that to the volunteers.
So who figures out what materials we want to buy if we're not Leathers?
Leathers would figure all that out I think with some of obviously staff's input too. So
Yeah, it's my understanding that they provide a full
accounting
list and they suggest the suppliers and that sort of thing, so they get exactly what they need.
So if we have a 100,000 budget for this and we do a community build, can we use part of that budget to help support staff, maybe hire a short-term volunteer coordinator or something like that to alleviate some of the staff time for the next 6 months in order to get this project done?
I mean, it's my understanding with this is it wouldn't need as much staff assistance with Leathers because they're the original designers of the park, and they would be able to figure that out, basically replacing the structure with the recycled plastic. I guess, Brad, if you could kind of talk a little bit about the work that would need to be done related to, we've talked about drainage. Would Leathers assess that, or how?
So there's some additional site work, which is kind of confusing, and our plan is to utilize a landscape architect, local landscape architect that we've used before. So the cost for that would be within the city manager's contracting authority. So it's not that much work. Our idea is that we need to replace some of the concrete, particularly around the entries where it's cracked, where it's being lifted up by
ADA
by the
reasons.
Trees for ADA reasons. And then there's drainage that's underneath the playground structures, both sections right now. It's 30 years old. It's been covered up for 30 years. So typical drain inlets, you have the opportunity to kind of look at them and see if they're working or if they're not working. We haven't had any issues that I'm aware of out there, but it's an opportunity since we're demoing everything and there's going to be a hole there. It's the opportunity to relook at that. And then along with the new structure where that drain is located and sort of in the center of the play areas, we may have to move that slightly or move the piping that goes to it to accommodate the new footings based on the new structure layout.
Well,
So that's really, in the big scope of things, it's fairly minor work, but it's important to have a successful project because we don't want to 5 years down the road all of a sudden have drainage issues. Well, why didn't you take care of that 5 years ago? It's like, well,
So looking at the proposals, I was left kind of wondering with Leathers, and I read through the RFP as well. So they did meet what the RFP asked for, but it's, there's still an unknown with cost with Leathers, whereas opposed to the Zoom Recreation one, which I liked the drawings and the renderings they had, and it was the full package, and it seemed like that timeline could be moved up pretty fast. We could accept it and move on and move forward and have it be built, and then have the community engage in maybe other parts of the park, like the dragon, things like that, to rebuild that. Is there an issue with us if we want to discuss accepting the Zoom contract proposal?
May I interject here just for 1 second? Just, Brad, I think maybe you need to back up a little bit and explain why we got 4 proposals. They are wildly different in cost. It looks like 2 of them did it for design only, and 2 of them did it for design
Correct.
materials and implementation. So,
That's correct, right. So so the RFP, request for proposal, clearly identified, we're just looking for design, not for construction. It was clearly stated a couple times for design. Both Leathers and Played by Design understood that and addressed their proposal thusly. So Zoom Recreation and Burke did not, and they included the construction as part of their proposal too.
So
For that, that's why they scored lower, because they weren't following, they weren't responsive to the request for proposal.
yeah. I want to make comments, but I don't want to make it at you. So I don't know if you want me to wait. I don't know if I have any
we
questions
do
for
have a
Brad right now.
request from the public to speak on this, so why don't we go ahead and call her up and then.
I have some additional questions
Okay.
too.
Okay. Let's bring up the public and then we'll do it real quick.
Okay, our
we
speaker
only have one
will be
speaker.
Loretta Hedinger. Come on down, Loretta.
I thought we were asking questions.
We
of
are,
staff.
but we're gonna let her speak real quick.
I didn't intend to come tonight until I went to the budget meeting this afternoon. And at that budget meeting, it came very clear to me that we are suffering greatly from a lack of future income. So my question for this project tonight, the only reason I'm coming forward is that I read it as being at the design stage, so that there are potential to make changes, not something that's already been so far through the process. So I wondered if the goal is to replicate exactly what's out there, or if we shouldn't look at something that would be focused on how we can maintain it for the future. That is a big problem all over the city. And this was some funding that was robbing Peter to pay Paul, and yet Paul is still out there needing attention. And so my goal in speaking tonight is to ask you to consider long-term maintenance of this project and what the other needs are. We are accustomed in Folsom to building the best that you can build. And please don't interpret my saying that I want something that is substandard. I absolutely approve of the high standards of quality that Folsom has always sponsored. And so I just want a close look at future maintenance of this and whether we can afford to replicate what's there. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Any more questions at this time, Councilmember Warbaugh, or you want to go to Councilmember Larry?
Yeah, I had a number of questions.
No, I know. I'm just seeing if Councilmember Warbaugh has any other questions. We only had one request to speak. Yeah.
No, let Barbara go.
Okay.
I can go again.
Okay.
Well, we'll wait till you get back up to the podium. Thank you. And I appreciate the comments that Ms. Settinger made. I understand that there's a change in the type of material that are going to be used for another Leathers project. Is that correct?
That is correct. It would be something similar to Trex, if you're all familiar with Trex, which is recycled plastic made to look like lumber. There's a number of different suppliers that can provide that. And so as our city manager mentioned, Leathers provides recommendations on where to procure that material.
And so is there any evaluation of the longevity of that material? Because this has essentially been fully built in the 90s, and everybody in the community, different community organizations, et cetera, participated in putting this together. Then there was a portion of it burned down, and people had to go back and rebuild part of it again. And I'm kind of wondering if the Trex is actually going to be more durable.
So the original structure, the lifespan was like 20 to 25 years. So through the awesomeness of our Parks Maintenance Department, it's lasted for 30 years, which is pretty unbelievable.
And our service day crews with their linseed oil.
That's true.
We did that
That's
for
true.
many
Yes,
years,
yes.
and then we stopped, and it fell apart after that.
Well, yeah, I understand the Trex doesn't need as much maintenance as that. But one of my other questions is that kind of a construct actually as easily accessible as some of these other projects that we've looked at? And we got a project in, it just came in this afternoon from Burke, and it looked like they hadn't originally sent in the full proposal and estimate of cost, which is also less than the 1.1 million that was projected for a reconstruction of the same kind of structure. So I haven't, this is not handicapped accessible as it is.
Correct. It doesn't
And
meet
these other new constructs are, designed around that as that's become more of a concern for the public in general. And we've got a larger population. And I imagine with that, we have more people that need that kind of access.
So one of our requests in the RFP was it needs to be accessible. So this, as you mentioned, this is grandfathered in because it's been around for so long. So it needs to be accessible, and we'd like for it to be more inclusive for all abilities.
And I guess it's really difficult for me at this point, seeing, two other proposals that were for a full construct and one that just came in today, and then kind of evaluated the full construct of that. And I know this has been through, Parks and Rec, and the recommendation was to go ahead with a similar structure. And I know that some people are married to this particular structure because it's been there for so long, but I think there's others that may be more durable and accessible. So that makes it difficult for me to.
I think that this synthetic lumber, the Trex, is going to last us for 25 years. I don't know why it wouldn't. It's a fairly common building material.
And on these other proposals, look like there's like some metal, and there's also some other materials that are supposed to be long lasting. Is there a difference in the longevity of how long
I don't know off the top of my head of the longevity of those other materials.
Sorry, I know those are hard because you didn't anticipate those questions today, but.
And if I can
are on
add
my
something too, with leathers, when the way that we were presenting this is that they would put together the design process, but then we can bid out the materials. So then we can look at the different materials and then choose what we felt was the best to use. So we weren't stuck to one type of playground structure. We'd be able to have a fair bidding process and get all of the materials that were durable and that we would recommend. And also some of the other cities, City of Sacramento, Davis, they have used this recycled materials and have nothing but positive things to state.
Yeah. Just to comment on that, in 2015, I was able to help with a build like this. And we used the recycled plastic material, and now it is 10 years older, and it's in really, really good shape. So I feel very confident that it would be able to last. And we have this material in lots of different places as well. To answer the question related to, this is kind of a unique situation because I know it's tempting to try to award a contract to these other ones because we want to get the project done. But in some ways, and I look to my city attorney colleague here, it's kind of problematic because we didn't ask for that bid. And so you could have others say, wait a second, if you were going to award a construction contract, we would have bid for this. So that's one of the dilemmas we have of just moving forward with one of these alternatives, that although they're showing, hey, this is what it's going to cost, they didn't really follow our request, and it puts us at risk for a protest, and it doesn't feel as clean as it needs to be.
Slow us down.
So my question, in the RFP, did you have I read through it briefly this morning. Did you ask for pricing or indication of that they could do a community build, be partners along? I mean, I know that you have physically talked to Leathers Company, but with
We
the
did
other.
not. We requested support for our fundraising partner, the Kids Play for Generations, support in terms of their fundraising efforts, but we did not specifically request or talk about the community build portion.
I don't want to.
It sounds to me like we have two options. We either accept the proposal from Leathers and Associates or Play by Design, or we throw it out and we do a new RFP, which delays the whole process, right? So that's, Mr. City Attorney, does that seem accurate?
That is correct, Madam Mayor. There are two processes that we can follow, but we got to choose one of the two. One is the traditional, you design first, and then with the design documents, you go out to bid for construction. The second path is design build, as you are discussing here for Zoom and also for Burke. They're both okay, but you can only choose one. But here they are kind of mixed together. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And the matter before you tonight is not design build. It's just design. So you can certainly reject all bids, have staff go out to rebid if you want to say, hey, we see something already. We probably may be interested in a design build package. Then a new RFP would be issued for firms to compete on the same playing field to provide design and build bids for the council. Or you can just go with design right now because we have two proposals who are responsive to the RFP, two non-responsive to the RFP, and go with the traditional route. So either one is fine, but you got to pick one of the two.
In the interest of focusing our discussion, can I make a motion
Yes,
so
you may.
that we approve resolution number 11389 as presented?
All right. Is there a second?
I am normally, while you guys think about that seconding, I, in my regular line of work, constantly are trying to convince people to do design build, but in this particular instance, I think because of the community involvement, the opportunity for us to use volunteer workforce in some other later stages of this, and our relative control over material selection, design, everything, if we're working directly with the designer and they don't have an interest in the construction, this is the way to go on this particular
Well, and
project.
I think that what's missing from me from the motion is that if we accept Leathers as the company, then we aren't directing staff that we're going to do a community build. We're going to go out for construction
100%
and
agree.
construction materials. So I think, so that's why I'm not seconding the motion. I think I need more discussion or a different motion.
Is the resolution, maybe I'm not reading far enough into it, but it simply says authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for design consulting services with Leathers.
Right.
Period. That's the end of it.
Right, but that means we could go out. So if you
We
don't.
can go out for bid for contractors or
Correct.
not. That's our discretion.
And that's what I'm lacking is that I want to be very clear because, okay, so I'm just going to take this moment, if it's okay with you. I've been frustrated about this pathway for over a year now. We authorized $800,000 in the budget last, and this, I'm looking at you, but it's not directed at you, Brad, so just, but you're right there. So I'm going to try not to look at you. So this has been going on for over a year. I've been, working on this since I campaigned 2.5 years ago, but we funded $800,000 last year. We have no design. There's been no communication loop. There's been no workshop. I've heard third hand that we weren't going to go out for an RFP, that we're going to do a sole source. So I was kept out of the process. I mean, we did have a meeting here or there, but I know the community is very frustrated about this. Here we are a year later and nothing has happened. And I think there's been a lot of conversation, in case the public didn't recognize that there's been some conversations today going back and forth with staff and myself and I'm sure some other council members as well. But so my hesitation is that, we're here a year later, and if now we have a designer, And if we're not being very clear to the city of what we want to accomplish in a timeline, then we could be here in a year with maybe just a design, and now we're moving forward for construction materials. So I'm not interested in making a motion or seconding a motion or approving something unless we have very clear stipulations of what we want. So what I saw, which I mentioned earlier, is in the Zoom bid particularly, that we can build this park and have it be the essence of Castle Park and what it was 27 years ago when it was built, under $800,000. And I think that in the past, the city I've seen, we give a budget and then we always go over the budget. I'm not interested in going over the budget at this moment. I think we can build a really great park with the essence of Castle Park. I've seen the renderings. It's really beautiful. It would be dynamic, and we could do it in a quick timeline. So I think that, Mayor, you did articulate the two options. We could go with leathers. But I would want to, I think at that point, if we do choose to do leathers, that we direct staff that we're going to be doing a community build and on a quicker timeline, and we engage with the volunteer that is in charge of the nonprofit, who has the pulse of that community right around that Castle Park. And then, you can use me, since it's my district, as a point for the community to speak to, working with staff and then working with leathers. But we make sure that we're very clear on a timeline. I know that talking with our city manager, he's been very clear that I think that we can get this done quicker, that this is a priority. There's other parks, in the pipeline, but we've been talking about, the community's been talking about this for years. Speaking to what the speaker said earlier about thinking through maintenance, that's where we're at. The maintenance now is, costing us way too much. And too much time and all of that, and parts of it are closed, that we're at the point now where we can't just maintain it anymore. We have to rebuild it. So unfortunately, we got to that position. So in speaking with staff today, or the city manager today, I would also be okay with going out for a new RFP for a full construction, allowing leathers to articulate what it would mean, what their cost estimate would be, allowing the other companies to come in, and the companies that I heard that didn't bid because they weren't interested in bidding just on the design, but doing that on a tighter time frame. That would be the only way I would do that. I don't want to get to the point where we're so frustrated that we haven't done anything in a year that we push the button and start now. I'd rather could wait 6 more weeks and do it right. Or we make a motion with using leathers and making sure that maybe this is the opportunity for us to take a little shift and make sure that we involve the entire community around it, all of our nonprofits in the area that are willing to do things like this, make sure we have enough staff that can see a community build through to the end, but make sure that we have a goal of a timeline, that it's not fall of 2026, that it's actually, February 2026, and make that a very clear direction too.
So does the Zoom recreation, that doesn't assume a community build, it assumes they're building it for that amount, right?
Yes, I asked for the proposals this morning and it was a full build out.
Okay.
Can I ask a question of the city attorney? How far can we stretch the modification to resolution 11389? Because, in terms of the spirit of things, I would second Mrs. Robah's, intention here. I think it's absolutely what we should be doing. But in terms of approving this, it's a contract motion.
Sure. Really good question. And Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, you can certainly give direction to staff.
Yeah.
So staff can now move forward with letters pursuant to your instructions to staff. So that's not a problem. If there's going to be a change order because of the direction to staff, that will be a change order coming for future approval. But
Gotcha. Separate question, do our city rules preclude leathers from doing construction of this project because they're the designer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Is that a problem for them?
Well, I don't think they had planned to construct it
Yeah,
anyway.
exactly. Okay.
Right. Correct.
So
But that's assuming that community build will actually save money. It depends. So I would recommend that if you were to give direction to staff, allow staff the flexibility to discuss with others so that they can actually determine which method saves the most money.
So in the interest simply of time, I'll renew my motion, but with the caveat that we absolutely want the design process kickoff meeting to happen with the public in June. So have Leathers under contract and immediately start workshopping this thing with the public so that they're brought into the process as has been described
So
by Councilperson Rohrbaugh.
Can I explain? So the design process kickoff meeting, that's for the design team and the city team. And then the public portion, which we actually condensed that process.
Okay.
And that would be more of an open house. So that's the public process that we're proposing.
Okay. I'm imagining a charrette phase with the public rather than showing up with a completed design, because they probably have a completed design already.
I don't think they do.
Okay.
Leathers doesn't.
They make playgrounds for a living, so they've got lots of stuff in their office, I'm sure.
Right.
I would like it. I'm architect Mike thinking this through. We frequently with stuff like this, and because this is such a sensitive particular design, I don't think we want to show up with pick one of these two or three that are all real similar to each other. I think we want to have a discussion about what the design constraints are vis-a-vis the accessibility requirements that exist. They existed in '96 also. They're much more cemented into the ground today. What the budget is, what that means in terms of how much material we can actually do. What does a community build mean? What will the community be limited to? So that open discussion about those topics, I think bringing the community into that as a charrette stage, I think that can happen almost immediately. And then a design presentation after that's all been absorbed and turned into pretty pictures that people can then weigh in on, which of any number of options works.
So does this give us the option to pick a design that's potentially maybe a smaller footprint and, be less costly in the long run?
Let's.
Well, this is the problem with only some of the council members getting the proposals, because the proposals of the two that were complete was very, very clear. We could build a park for under 800,000. It was gorgeous.
Yeah.
It looked like Castle Park. It can be completed in a very timely manner. And I think Mike and Barbara, you didn't get that information. I don't know if Mayor did either or not.
Yeah, this afternoon they forwarded.
You
it to
did
us,
get it
yes.
this afternoon. Okay.
Would you like to make a motion to reject this?
No, I'm not in,
have
because I have two choices in my head and I'm not sure which one is right for
Could I
this
take a swing?
community. Yes.
Thanks to park staff, first off. I've been pretty engaged on this over the last week, and that's just not counting the last, year of this. Hindsight's always 20/20. If we had to go back and do it all again, I don't think this is what we would end up with, just because I don't think the RFP, the responses we got, when I got this, the timeline was off late 2026, and then the RFPs, the spread was very, very large. So we didn't have enough people that are willing to compete in this space, or they didn't get it. 3 out of 4 of the builders use set equipment, which I think makes sense. If you're going to design something, you want to design it from a set of building blocks. That all being said, it is a Leathers Park. I think community build's really important. I think it would fit with everything. I think we want another Castle Park, so it fits with that. I think if we could get, and I think Councilman Rohrbaugh, and what I'm asking is if we could get a strong commitment that we're going to have a park open by April 2026 from Parks and Rec staff and our city manager, and we also can get a commitment that we do community build in order to try to bring the cost down, and then we fit this within the budget. So, hey, if Leathers comes back and says, hey, we got this great design, but it's going to cost us $850, we say, take out a castle spire, make it $800, take a chainsaw to it, cut it off, right? So we don't want to do this anymore. $800,000 is what we're willing to put into it. We want it to be community build, and we want it to get started and get done ASAP. And I think if we have those commitments, then I can be comfortable.
Well, and I think we could say even shorter time, but let's set the goal
I'd love to have it.
December
If
2025,
we do,
and then
if we start construction on November 15th and it's community build, we'll be done by November 30th.
I'm only anxious to approve this because going back out for another RFP will
Would take another
submarine this schedule.
But
Correct.
if we design build, we go out for another RFP. It doesn't do that because it would be very clear. So I don't have that much hesitation with it, but I do think that it will end up with a very quality product if we use leathers, and if we get that community build, that's something that the others are not offering us, right?
Right.
All right, we're looking for a motion.
So can I get a
have a
little?
mo- I
I have a
have a
question to
motion.
staff before I'm willing to
Died
second.
For lack of a second. Or are you seconding it now?
Well, I was going to, as long as I can get a commitment from staff that,
Yeah, so-
that what I'm
so-
saying and what Councilmember Rohrbaugh is in line with what you guys want to do. It's been back and forth with staff for a long time, so I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
Understood. So Kelly, I mean, is that something that Parks and Rec would feel comfortable with?
Yes, we spoke to Leathers today, and we believe we can meet that commitment.
Second.
All right, finally, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Larry,
Yes, I'm sorry that I didn't get to see the other designs that apparently everybody else was looking at during the day.
Rayful,
Yes.
Rohrbaugh,
yes.
Kozlowski.
It's better to have some mystery in your life.
Is that a
It's a
yes?
yes
Is
or
that a
no?
yes
Yes.
or a no? That's a yes.
That's a yes.
And a Keno.
Yes. Thank you very much, Brad, Kelly, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
All right, next item, please.
That takes you to your first public hearing of the evening. This will be item number 9. This is a presentation by staff in compliance with AB 2561 and Government Code Section 3502.3 regarding city vacancies, recruitment, and retention efforts.
Good evening, Allison.
Evening.
This time you have no request to speak on this public hearing.
We don't have any more requests to speak on anything, do we?
That's right there. Okay. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Allison Garcia, your Human Resources Director. Tonight's item is in response to AB 2561 and requires a presentation to the council on vacancies, recruitment, and retention. This presentation is provided for informational purposes only. AB 2561, this is the first time presenting this information to the Folsom City Council. In September 2024, AB 2561 was passed with an effective date of January 1st, 2025. This bill requires a public agency to conduct at least one public hearing per fiscal year prior to the adoption of next year's budget, presenting the status of vacancies and recruitment and retention efforts, and entitles the recognized employee organizations to present at the hearing. In accordance with this regulation, all bargaining units were notified of this public hearing, and the public hearing notice was published in the Folsom Telegraph. In response, Commander Andrew Bates, president of the Folsom Police Management Association, and police officer Darren Prochu, board member of the Folsom Police Officers Association, will be speaking on this item after my presentation. The bill further states that if the number of job vacancies within a single bargaining unit meets or exceeds 20% of the total number of authorized full-time positions, the bill requires the public agency, upon request of the bargaining unit, to include specific information during the public hearing. Fortunately, this does not apply to our bargaining units. The California legislature recognizes that widespread job vacancies in local government are a significant issue affecting service delivery, employee well-being, and labor relations. Ensuring transparency of efforts and adequate staffing across public agencies is a matter of statewide concern. The bill does not specify what the look-back period must be. In order to provide you with a full year of data, we captured calendar year 2024, since we have all data for the complete year. This data set, however, spanned 2 fiscal years, fiscal year 23-24 and 24-25, of which had 490.5 FTE and 503.5 FTE, respectively. That's important to note as we saw a slight increase in vacancy rates mid-calendar year, which we'll see in an upcoming slide. The budgeted positions covered public services from all departments listed on the screen. So how do we determine the vacancy rate? We took the information based at the start of each month in the look-back period. We took the citywide vacancies and divided it by the number of budgeted FTEs. And we end up with our percentage of vacancies. The average citywide vacancy rate in calendar year 24 was 7%. For comparison, City of Sacramento had a vacancy rate of 14%. City of Rancho Cordova had an 8% vacancy rate. Roseville had a 7% vacancy rate. Citrus Heights a 9%, and Elk Grove a 6% vacancy rate. If you look at the graph on the right, you'll see a visual of how those vacancies changed over time. There's a slight upward trend from June to July, vacancies increasing from 6 to 8%. But it's important to note that this also marks the start of a new fiscal year when the total number of budgeted positions increased by 13. So the base number we're dividing by also changed. We also analyzed vacancy rates by labor group, including unrepresented positions, which are primarily in HR and finance. The group with the highest vacancy rate was the Folsom Middle Management Group, FMMG, at 17%. This includes supervisors, managers, and advanced journey level positions. FMMG represents a significant portion of our workforce with deep institutional knowledge and technical expertise. Many individuals in this group are late career professionals, and as a result are beginning to see a wave of retirements that is contributing to a higher vacancy rate within this group. Again, these are not entry-level roles. Many require specialized skills, certifications, or years of experience, which make them more challenging and time-consuming to fill. The retirements not only create immediate vacancies, but also increase the urgency to recruit and train successors who can step into leadership roles and maintain continuity in service delivery. This trend reflects a broader challenge across the public sector, where long-tenured employees are exiting the workforce, leaving behind a gap that requires strategic succession planning and competitive recruitment efforts. Like many organizations, we're experiencing a smaller applicant pool and increased competition for qualified candidates. On a positive note, police and fire management had no vacancies during the reporting period. While there was turnover due to retirements in fire, the chief took proactive steps in anticipation of upcoming retirements and, if needed, temporarily overstaffed key positions to support continuity and knowledge transfer during the vacancy period. Next slide has a lot of numbers. It's just details by month for each labor group. Although FMMG reflected a 17% vacancy rate over the calendar year, you can see the uptick in budgeted positions as we started fiscal year 24-25, increasing budgeted positions by 5, which causes the vacancy rate to now calculate at a higher denominator. Over the course of the reporting period, we made solid progress in filling vacancies across the organization. Of the 76 vacancies in 2024, 45 required new recruitments, while we filled 31 using existing eligibility lists. Out of all vacancies filled, 25 were filled through internal promotions, helping us retain institutional knowledge and reward employee growth. This reflects our investment in employee development and our commitment to promoting from within. As impressive, our time to hire was 90 days on average. The city's HR team conducted a comprehensive review of our policies, procedures, and recruitment efforts to better understand the challenges we face and the opportunities we can pursue in attracting and retaining top-tier talent. Several key obstacles emerged. Like many public agencies, we're facing increased competition from both the private sector and neighboring jurisdictions. Our hiring processes, while thorough, can be lengthy, sometimes taking significantly longer than those in the private sector. A recent NeoGov report, and NeoGov is an applicant tracking system, found that average public sector time to hire is 119 days, with local government averaging 130 days, compared to just 36 days in the private sector. This extended timeline can limit our ability to quickly secure top candidates. As a reminder, your HR team has an average time to hire of 90 days. We're also seeing the impact of rigid position requirements, such as specific education, certifications, or experience, that can narrow our applicant pool. And while the demand for flexible work continues to be a discussion point, public sector roles have traditionally offered limited alternative work options like remote schedules. All of these challenges are amplified by an approaching retirement wave, which is expected to further strain our ability to replace seasoned professionals. High attrition not only reduces operational efficiency, but also carries a steep financial burden. According to the Society for Human Resource Management, the average cost to hire a new employee is $4,700, not including indirect costs like leadership time spent on hiring or the elevated costs of recruiting for hard-to-fill positions. In response, our team has identified solutions to address these obstacles, including elevating our employer brand using bold, authentic messaging to highlight what makes Folsom a great place to work and to convert job seekers into applicants. Also improving candidate communication, setting clear expectations and timelines to reduce uncertainty in the process. Lastly, collaborating with departments and unions to reassess minimum qualifications and identify where flexibility is appropriate. In summary, while recruitment and retention challenges persist, the City of Folsom is actively addressing them through internal promotions, streamlined hiring, and stronger outreach efforts. AB 2561 has helped us take a closer look at our vacancy and workforce trends, and we remain committed to building a strong, future-ready team. With that, I'd like to introduce Commander Andrew Bates, President of the Folsom Police Management Association, followed by Police Officer Darren Prochu, Board Member of the Folsom Police Officers Association. Excuse me, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Commander Bates.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council, and Mr. Whitemeyer. I'm going to keep my comments very brief. Just want to point out a close-up look. Although we have no vacancies because it's a competitive process to promote into our union, we manage the police officers union. Those are the men and women that are outside doing all the work and who we need to do that work in order to provide vital services to the city. So I'm speaking on behalf of them, and I just want to point out a couple of things. If you look very closely at just our officers, we have 87 sworn. We have 9 vacancies right now, and that runs at about a 10% vacancy rate where we're currently at. If you take into account the officers who are out either on training in the academy, training on the street, where they're not a solo officer that's able to function, or they're out for some sort of extended leave. Excuse me, we have 68 who are out and ready to run around and do work. That translates to just slightly over a 20% vacancy rate. I can tell you that is very, very challenging for us to address. We're doing the best we can to continue services and keep things running, but it's a problem that's been out there for a while. There's a lot of causes. I'm not here to pick it apart. I'm here to say that we want to work together with both the officers union as well as all of you in the city and city leadership to try to resolve that and try to make it a little better and draw more people in. Not looking to you to solve the problem. We've been working on this for quite a while. We've experimented with some paid Facebook ads, very inexpensive, also very ineffective. Those have not translated into applicants the way we had hoped. It did get our message in front of a lot of people, but not people who turned into applicants. We've attended recruiting fairs and events. We've done that for years and years. Recently, we have worked with a recruiting firm that did keyword analytics for those people who did end up applying for us and looking at targeting them with our ads to drive them towards our new landing page to showcase the police department and what we do. I will say the most effective one we've ever had was word of mouth. We hired someone from a nearby agency that shall go unnamed, who then spoke to a bunch of her coworkers and got a chain of people in. They were attracted to things like the supportive city, the beautiful location, and the things that we offer here, and the general policing environment here that differs substantially from that city they came from. We're always looking for that, and we're always trying to convince our people to talk to their friends and let them know what it's like out here in Folsom. We try to emphasize those non-tangibles. We are looking at anything we can find. We're looking at any way that we can get that recruiting and excite people at coming out here. We are looking forward to working with the city manager in the coming year and seeing what we can put together and maybe some out-of-the-box thinking and ways that we can draw people in. We are in this together, and we are excited to work with all of you, and we appreciate the support. Thank you.
I have a question.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Is the landing page up? The new one that they,
Believe it's still in progress. We're making sure that it checks all the boxes before we go live with it.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Officer Prochu, come on up. Thanks for being patient and waiting through that park discussion for us.
Absolutely, no problem. So this is my first time in front of the council like this, so
Well, welcome.
bear with me. Mayor Keno, members of the city council, city manager, city administration, and fellow residents of Folsom. Thank you for this opportunity to address you today on behalf of the Folsom Police Officers Association. I've worked for the city of Folsom and for the police department since 1995. I stand before you as spokesperson for the Folsom POA today. Our goal is simple but vital. To make the city of Folsom the workplace of choice for dedicated, talented public servants. We believe that by working hand in hand with the department and city administration, sorry, I lost my track. the City Council, the City Manager's Office, we can build a stronger department, more resilient community, in an environment in which every member of the Folsom Police Department feels valued and empowered. Help us to continue to provide the high level of service and professionalism that this community has come to expect and that we pride ourselves on delivering. We must be competitive with our surrounding areas to attract the quality and quantity of public servants that is vital to keep Folsom in a position as which it is known for. For years, our department has operated under challenging conditions. We currently carry, as you heard, a 10% vacancy rate in positions. While this number may seem small, for this department and city, it is huge. We ask you to take into consideration that we currently have officers in the police academy that will not be ready for solo patrol for up to a year. Officers that are recovering from injuries, and an additional officer that we currently have in training. So that percentage of 10% is actually much higher, probably approaching 20%, and it is affecting us. That means that we suffer even greater shortages on day-to-day operations. Research reveals that we need more dispatchers, records clerks, and other non-sworn positions, as well as police officers. In the face of these staffing shortfalls, our members continue to serve with purpose, professionalism, compassion, and unwavering commitment to the city of Folsom. We are resilient and efficient, so it may not seem noticeable to all citizens of Folsom. We implore you to provide support, resources, and ideas to achieve success. The Folsom POA also proposes forward and critical thinking ideas to address these challenges and improve our workplace culture. And these include, but are not limited to, enhanced mentorship and peer support programs to nurture recruits and reduce new officer and employee attrition. Wellness initiatives that promote physical and mental health. Regular and transparent dialogue sessions with department administration, which have already begun. And city leadership to identify shortfalls and vacancies through the department and work towards solutions together. By investing in all of our department employees through training, retention, appropriate financial support, open communication, we reinforce public safety and build trust between the community and those of us that protect it. We ask that City Council, City Administration, and our residents join us in these efforts to provide feedback when asked, embrace innovation, and champion the resources that we need to serve with purpose and distinction. Together, we want to strengthen the bonds within our city and department, improve morale, and ensure every officer and member of our association proudly invests in Folsom by being fully engaged in the community through work, city events, and if able, through being residents of this community. Thank you for your time, your partnership, and support in making Folsom an outstanding place to live, work, and serve.
Thank you very much. Okay, this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the public hearing. Do we have any requests to speak?
You have no request to speak on this item.
All right, and I am going to close the public hearing. There is no action needed on this item. Does anybody have any other questions for Allison or?
No, I had some questions during the review, and I think you answered them during your presentation. And it was, what are we doing to make sure at least the Folsom Middle Management Group that we don't exceed any further? We reverse that trend. And then I do appreciate you having the city manager, having the both representatives of the police department speak about their vacancies. As they said, the FPOA includes non-sworn, so the 7% isn't reflective of the sworn officers. They articulated that very well, so I appreciate that as well. Just want to make sure that we have a continued focus, that we don't continue on this trend, if it is a trend, that we are and I think you answered it before, making sure that we are a place that people want to work.
Definitely. And just to clarify, because I know both Commander Bates and Officer Pertru brought up, when we are looking at vacancy rates, it is based on positions where someone resigned, retired, or has otherwise separated. So it's a budgeted position, whereas as both of them mentioned, they're taking into consideration employees that are out on long-term leave. So we do see the vacancy rate differently, but I do understand where they're coming from.
I appreciate that, Allison, because when it was quoted at 20%, of course, they were saying their ready rate, but still the sworn officers having 10.3% vacancy rate is still, I think, too high. And then the POA representative, and I forgot your last name, I'm so sorry, did mention that, you know, in a city this size, you really notice that 10%. So I do appreciate you clarifying that. But
Definitely.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Allison? All right, call the next item, please. Thank you, Allison.
Okay, next is item number 10. This is resolution number 11387. This is a resolution rescinding resolution number 8792 and adopting a new community facility rental fee schedule with annual adjustments that are not to exceed the CPI.
Good evening, Tom.
There we go. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Tom Hellman, the Recreation Community Services Manager with the Parks and Recreation Department. Tonight's a public hearing on the community facility rental fee schedule. Basically, the staff and the Parks and Recreation Commission supports a recommendation to you all for resolution number 11387, which would rescind resolution number 8792 and adopting a new community rental fee schedule, excuse me, with an annual adjustment not to exceed the consumer price index. And I'll explain that a little bit more. In tonight's presentation I have for you, which encompasses your staff report, there's a little bit more information in here that was not in your staff report, so I'll call that out, but hopefully you've had a chance to go through some of the background that is in there. Just a couple things about this program and our department: a broad range of indoor and outdoor facilities for the residents of Folsom and its visitors to rent for family gatherings, meetings, and special events. The recommendations for the community facility rental fee schedule supports the priorities outlined in the strategic plan, including financial stability, economic and community development, and organizational effectiveness. And the Parks and Recreation Commission did review this information and recommend approval of these facility fees to you all that was presented to them back in September of 2024. So just to get a broad scope of what our community facilities program includes, you have some indoor facilities, which is next door at the communities for the Folsom Community Center. You have the Rotary Clubhouse, and then you have some various outdoor facilities, which would include the Dan Russell Rodeo Arena, the historic Folsom Turntable or Plaza area, the Zittle Family Amphitheater, and as well as a variety of park picnic pavilions like the one pictured here that you see at Nisenan Park. So the previous resolution that we speak of was done in February of 2011, and during that resolution, they only resolved fees to the Folsom Community Center. There was no other fees that were resolved in that resolution for these other community facilities. Why is that important? Because our own Folsom Municipal Code states that those fees for rental of city facilities would include but not be limited to those facilities that you see up there, and that those fees for rental of city facilities shall be established by resolution of the City Council, which brings us here tonight. So as we looked at the various fees within the various community facility programs, we assessed public-owned facilities in the region and that are similar in space and size. Staff's analysis included the square footage, cost per square foot, a duration of time for the rental, and other renting space. And staff reviewed our current facility rental frequency to assess the community's desire to continue with the rent of the facilities. So what's not in your packet, but what is included in here after some diligent work this afternoon is some occupancy rates that you'll see at the various facilities. So our park picnic pavilions, these are the 5 main ones that we've had on the schedule for some time. We are asking or suggesting that we add 3 more to the schedule. As some of you may be aware, we also just recently launched this opportunity to the public that they can now rent these park picnic pavilions online. They do not have to come in to speak to a staff member anymore. They do not have to come in to furbish insurance for that use. That is all done online through the rec system. So you see a large activation, and when you look at this across the calendar year of 2024, you'll see a large activation occurring during those warmer months, obviously, and then decreasing as you get into those colder months. The community center has a very high occupancy rate for a ballroom, 97% during our weekend usage and over 100% during our weekday usage. The R.G. Smith room, very similar, 69% during the weekend and 90% during the weekday. A lot of meetings and gatherings take place in the R.G. Smith room. It's a great meeting location, as well as the Rotary Clubhouse with 111% during the weekend and 99% during the weekday. The way we get above 100% there, if you're wondering, It's not always available, but sometimes staff can make it happen as you can book multiple events in a given day. So there's the possibility, depending upon the size of that event, that the team could secure a rental in the morning time, and let's say they're done by 12, be able to turn the room over and be able to accommodate another rental that evening. It is rare. It's not a regular thing. It's based upon the size and scope of the rental that's looking to be had and whether or not the staff can accommodate that. But there are some occasions, as you clearly can see in some of our areas, where we can accommodate that, which pushes that occupancy rate over that 100% threshold. So our community facility rental fee schedule, tonight staff is recommending a list rate that brings our facilities to what we have assessed and analyzed regarding what the market will hold. When we take that list rate, we're looking at an easy way and a thoughtful way to then provide a resident discount for the use of these indoor facilities, in which we've applied a 25% discount. Then additionally, we looked at those indoor facilities and we said for our nonprofit rate, we're going to take another 20% off that 25% discount for a total of 45% off the list rate for our nonprofit organizations to use our indoor facilities. All of these proposed changes to community fee schedule will be reviewed annually, and then we're looking to adjust only the indoor spaces by the consumer price index annually, and then bring that back to you generally in June or July for the inflationary adjustment to those cities' fees. So here's a couple analysis that we looked at. So this is the full ballroom at the community center, and you see some various other ones within the area. Citrus Heights Community Center, La Sierra Community Center, and then recently I also looked at the Laguna Town Hall. What I did to try to look at these in this slide and the various slides to preceding this is I took the average of all of this to try to bring it into a line of where are they in comparison to what we currently have. And so you see that, what is that, the fifth line down, you see the average comes all the way across of the square footage, the list rate, the cost per square foot, so forth and so forth. And then you see what we are currently at. From there, we were looking at, okay, well, what's an adjustable for that? Right now, we're proposing it's a 20% increase in the list rates to get us to where we are at 312 from 260. But as you also see, we're also right in comparison to what our average is for the cost per square foot, knowing that we can't find exact matches for our facilities as far as size, but we try to come close to it with what is out there in the public domain. So then we do the same methodology with the half ballroom. We have the east and the west side. There's no difference in cost if you want to rent one side versus the other. Just one side has a stage, one side has a bar in the back. Both have equal access to the kitchen if they choose to. And these were some of the the other public agencies that we looked at to kind of build out our methodology of what our averages are for the area and then where we currently are to then where we sit. Keep in mind, while we might either be beneath the average, these indoor facilities would be adjusted annually by that CPI. And again, we're starting with a 20% increase to the list rate. And so while we might be beneath these averages right now, as the CPI goes up each year, then we would adjust that as well. There would be no adjustment to it this year if we move forward, but it would come in 2026. And then for the R.G. Smith room, the same methodology applies to various different facilities. There was a few more we could pull in from this one to get us to what we looked at as from an average and then a cost per square foot. This one we found that for what we have is a really good meeting space location, but definitely needed some adjustments as far as being underneath the average there in a lot of categories. And then finally, the Robert H. Miller III Rotary Clubhouse building. Very popular building, as you saw within our occupancy rates. Again, three facilities that we added here to get to our average, to get to our cost per square foot, to then determine what our list, our resident, and our nonprofit rates would be. Then we looked at our park picnic pavilion rentals. We looked at 4 agencies, the Casumna CSD, Eldorado Hills CSD, Cordova Recreation and Park District, and the city of Roseville. The most 2 neighboring ones we just looked at most recently. Of all of them combined, they have a range between $11.13 per hour up to $37.50 an hour for 8 hours of use. However, our closest neighbors, El Dorado Hills and Cordova Recreation Park District, hourly rate ranges between $15.65 up to $25 for similar size picnic pavilions of us. So that's anywhere from 60 to 200 people that we have. Our current rate at Folsom Park Pavilions, at the current rate we have right now, which was not a resolve fee, keep in mind, is $31.25 an hour for basically $250 for the day. So what we're proposing is actually a decrease in that hourly rent, also knowing that we've made it much easier for people to rent these park pavilions through the online system. They no longer have to come in. They no longer have to furbish insurance with us. The online portal takes care of that for them. At a $20 per hour park pavilion for those pavilions with 100-person capacities or less, and $25 per hour for those park pavilions with 100-person capacities or more, which is identified in attachment 2 of your fee schedule proposed. There's also an additional recommendation of a multi-day or a special event use fee for these park pavilions that we do get asked about when people are submitting for special event applications. And so we don't have that captured. And so we came up with a recommendation of $750 for the day for either a special event use fee or if you're looking to use it for multiple days. Finally, it brings me just for the Folsom City Council to support resolution number 11387. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to address those, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Questions? I'll start down at your end. Councilmember Leary.
Okay, thanks, Tom. I'm wondering if you could kind of go over this double rentals in some days, because like the community center and I think also the I guess it's the Rotary Clubhouse. Both have 8-hour minimums.
On the peak, so that would be those Friday, Saturday, Sundays.
Right. So are those how do you
those generally would not be double booked.
Okay, that's
So,
what
yeah.
I was asking.
So,
if that could be included. 'Cause,
Yeah. So, well, I take that back. It could, because you could have. On Sundays it could, because Sundays is a day where we actually only have 4-hour minimum. So you could do a Sunday morning and a Sunday evening.
Okay.
Yes.
And the latest that people can rent them on a weekend would be, they have to be
At
closed
ti-
by 10 o'clock or?
No, they can go upwards to midnight.
Upwards to midnight, okay. And then one of my other questions was about using the pavilions. And that is, I would hope that everybody would clean up after themselves, but I'm thinking you must need to use some staff time to go by and check to make sure that they were cleaned up sufficiently.
So our park picnic
Because you could
pavilions,
potentially, right,
they're
two
treated
back-to-back parties.
with regular park maintenance on a regular basis. So either that's prior to park opening that day, or they're coming in the evening before to get ready for the following day. With the park pavilion rental program, we're not providing a direct service as far as having staff there to either help them or provide a service right after they're done. We're providing them an opportunity to rent this space and have this space. But our park maintenance staff does come in either at the end of the day or the beginning of a day to make sure that the space is cleared up along with the rest of the park.
But there could be 2 rentals a day at
There
4
cannot be
hours
2
each.
rentals a day. We only book 1 per day at a park picnic
Right,
pavilion.
so you're not checking in between. And the reason I'm asking is
correct.
because some people don't clean up well, and
Yes.
then
Now,
it becomes a source of
we can't
frustration.
book 2 rentals, but that doesn't preclude somebody to show up and be there from 8 to 11, and then they vacate, and then someone comes in that evening from 4 to 9 on a first-come, first-served basis.
Right, and is there a part of the contract where is there a penalty for not cleaning up after themselves?
There is not, no.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Rohrbach, any questions? Vice Mayor Rathel?
I had some questions on the occupancy numbers. Thank you for putting those together. I do appreciate it. The occupancy, when you say it's 131%, you show 276 events in 210 days. But those are 4-hour events, right?
Correct.
So we have
Well, they're at least 4 hours. They could be maybe a little bit more, but they're at least 4 hours on those days.
Got it. But we have like 16 hours available in rental time a day, roughly?
Roughly, I guess you could say that, yes. But we don't book out, you can't like go on a calendar and go, I'd like to pick the 8 to 1 or the 3 to 9 time frame. It's based upon working with staff on what your request is and then being able to figure out those time frames.
Yeah, so because they're all individually booked, so some of them are
Correct.
not going to allow things on either side.
Yes, correct.
Because in the numbers you sent over, it's like we would have to have an event every single day in the Rotary Clubhouse and an event, more than one event every day in the ballroom, like in the community center. And I guess that doesn't match necessarily. Is that what you're saying? We're having an event every single day in the community center?
There is a large activation of the community center.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I did not pull day-to-day operations. We looked at it at the as far as the month.
Yeah, for the kind of event. So you're assuming one event a day, whether it's a 4-hour or 8-hour, is the max we can do in the facility. But with 4 hours, that does leave another 12 hours that we could book up. I know we can't do back-to-back events, but
Well, and during the week, you will see a possibility of back-to-back and or back-to-back-to-back.
Yeah.
Because we could have morning to an afternoon meeting to an evening type situation. So that's why that rental, the ballroom occupancy rate is so high, because we are able to accommodate multiple bookings in a given day during that week time.
Okay. And then just with the Rotary Clubhouse, I see most of those are nonprofit rentals for the weekday. Is that correct?
On the weekday, you said?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's like primarily what the Rotary Clubhouse is being used for during the week, is
correct.
Folsom-based nonprofits using that facility.
Yes.
And you're proposing we're going to increase their rates from $30 an hour to $78 an hour. So like 2.5 times.
Correct. Their nonprofit rate would be $78 per hour. So remember, you can book an indoor facility 1 year in advance. These wouldn't be proposed until September 1st. Most of them all book out 12 months in advance, so it wouldn't be until September of 2026 that their new rental rates would apply.
So if they're booking it for a whole year, are they still charged that $78 an hour? Because they have to come back to council for a discount on things, right? I'm just kind of curious how that would work. Like, have we told them that we're going to increase their rates 2.5 times?
There has been conversation that this is coming forward. If they wish a fee waiver, they have to come before you. If they can book 12 months in advance. So somebody can book right now under the current rates, which would be that $30 rates for 12 months.
Book and pay?
Book and pay, yeah. Well, yeah, either pay as you go or set up a plan, but basically pay it as you're using it, yes. And then it would be anything new. So then if you come in, if these are approved as September 1st, if you walk in on September 10th, you would then have those new rates applied for any new booking going forward. But anybody on the books right now for the next foreseeable 12 months are paying the current rates that we have established.
Got it. We can give them a year of figure it out, but we still haven't told them we're going to increase their rates by 2.5 times.
I have not spoken to them directly, no.
Okay. And it's, based on the number you sent me, it's 82%. Well, it's hard to tell because it's 82% of 130%, and that's 4 hours. So I'm not quite sure what it is, but it looks like we have about 173 weekday events there. Do we know how many nonprofits?
Where are you looking at? Sorry.
Like the Rotary Clubhouse. That seems to be the highest percentage increase.
And you're looking
I think
your question was what again? I'm sorry?
How many nonprofits are using it? Is that 170? Is that 10 nonprofits? Is that...
Oh, how many nonprofits? I don't know that.
Okay. Oh, do we have like a regular list of event users that rent out the community center? Do you have like 10 companies that are always coming to us and using the facility, or is it mostly like residents reaching out like, hey, I want to have grandpa's birthday celebration there this weekend?
Sure. It's a combination of both of those. There are some regular things that I think some of us will be known to have, like the quilt show, and some other organizations that have a regular thing here. There's some regularity with the school district that they use the community center for. Okay. And there's also then the residents that utilize this for various events and gatherings that come up throughout the year. Obviously not usually routine on the family side, but routine from the thematic of them, whether they're weddings or gatherings or birthdays.
And have we notified any of the previous users or renters of the facility of this potential rate increase?
We have not, no.
Okay. Right now, we are sitting at, I think, 77% of cost recovery. Is that right?
Yes, I believe that was what was in your report, yes.
And the recovery range that's right now approved by council is 50 to 75%?
The target range as approved in our policy from 2007 is 50 to 75%.
Okay, so you're asking us to revise that cost recovery tonight also? Because we're going above and beyond what the guidance has been before I was here. But the guidance was, hey, let's shoot for 50 to 75% cost recovery. You guys did the study, you got 77%, but now you're coming back and saying, well, what we really want is 89%? Is that?
As part of this, we're not looking to revise the cost recovery policies. That's a much bigger document and policy to get into, where I believe where Director Gonzalez and staff have talked about is creating a financial stability policy or sustainability policy to really look at those cost recovery matrices and are they where they need to be or where they need to go. I can tell you that the renting of an individual building is more individually based. So traditionally, you're going to see a little higher cost recovery on that versus a more community-based program, which would have a lower cost recovery.
But we haven't done any like cost recovery studies. We haven't said, hey, this is what our expenses are. Because we're talking about a building that was paid for, say the community center, building that was paid for 70 years ago. We pay zero property tax on it, right? Really, our only costs associated with renting that facility, I would imagine, are the maintenance of that structure and some staff to make sure, I appreciate the staff that's there during events that I've interacted with. They're great. But we have some staff and we have the maintenance of the building. That's really what we're trying to, and probably some administrative overhead.
By maintenance, you mean
Tables
like
and
all
chairs
the
and roof
operations
in the last
maintenance?
couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so building maintenance, right?
Yeah.
And
the
equipment maintenance.
Various utilities to keep that running, if that's what you're including maintenance, yes.
Okay. Do we have any idea what those costs?
We budgeted several $100,000 for replacing tables and chairs and replacing the roof in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
More than several $100,000, in fact.
I think it was like 400 last year.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to understand what the costs are. It's building maintenance, right, and some staffing that's associated with it.
Right.
But if we don't rent out the facility, the roof still eventually has to be replaced, right? Or we do something else with it.
Where are you going?
I'm just trying to figure out what our costs are, where we're going above the cost recovery.
Gotcha.
So one of the things I'd like to suggest is, as you pointed out with your assessment of the vacancy rate, that 133 could be higher. I would contend that if we use the same logic, his numbers are lower than the council policy.
Okay. Okay.
So we'd still remain below the policy.
So we'd still remain
If
below.
you use the hours as you were suggesting, that the vacancy rate would be lower than what we're saying.
Oh, yeah, I think the vacancy rate is much, much lower if we use the hours. I think our vacancy rate is.
So I'm just saying that, I mean, we're splitting hairs a little bit looking at the 77 going to 80%, because, I mean, I could argue that, hey, we're actually well below the rate.
We're actually 10% off on our calculation.
Right.
Okay, understood.
And if I could just add one more thing, I know we have deferred maintenance at a lot of our facilities for a very long time, so our goal is really to develop those maintenance and replacement fund so that we don't have to wait 10 years or 5 years when things are due to be replaced.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fundamental, we're going to overall budgetarily have to reassess everything that has to do with our assets because we don't have renewal and replacement funds for each of those assets, much like we've talked about related to vehicles. Yay, we have a new vehicle today, but we know we're going to have to replace it. Even the new roof of that center will have to be replaced. So if you just amortize that $400,000, that was, over a 20-year period, we're behind in many different areas. And so this is our attempt, and I appreciate all our staff's effort to try to catch up.
Yeah, I think that answers my cost recovery questions. I'm good with questions for
Okay,
now.
Councilmember Kozlowski, any questions?
None, thanks.
I have one question. Tom, the slide that shows the usage, I don't think you have the rodeo arena on there.
No.
Pretty low usage at the rodeo arena. But yet we are proposing an increase to the rate. What if we were to slash that rate and maybe increase the usage?
Increase it in what way?
Maybe somebody else would want to rent it out if the rate was lower.
We've had 2 interests that I know of in the last year. One of them was getting really close to signing, and then they pulled out for unknown reasons. If it's not really designed for the use of it as a rodeo, plus the very limited abilities that the arena has due to its age and infrastructure, it's getting really tough to get somebody other than what we have there right now as a rodeo to use it. We could go that way. I don't believe there's going to be a huge activation from just dropping that cost. Plus, then, as Brian was alluding to, we have a lot of facility demands at that rodeo arena specifically that we really need to address before we really start to look at what level of activation there could be. And then we've also looked at if we increase it too much over a given time period, what does that look for the residents that are adjacent down in the underside of the park there?
Okay, well, increasing it by $300 but only renting it out couple weeks a year, we're not going to generate a lot of revenue that could be then put back into that facility. Right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. This is a public hearing, so I'm going to go ahead and open that up. We have a couple requests to speak, or at least one, I guess.
You have a request from Sally Buchanan.
All right. Don't go too far, Tom.
As Sally's coming up, I do think that your train of thought is a good one as far as how do we engage or activate the rodeo grounds. I think it's a great conversation that we should have moving forward. We really activate it once a year. And what could we do there's a lot of revenue potential there, so it could be a future item.
Thank you.
I just want to add, sorry, but
Okay.
the Renaissance Fair has been using that when they're here, and I'm not sure how
I'm not
often they've
sure
been
they are
coming
anymore,
after COVID.
I think they're pulled out.
Altogether?
I don't know.
Okay. Sally, go ahead. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for allowing me to speak tonight. I know you have a really tough job sitting through the conversation on Castle Park. Balancing budgets and getting things done aren't easy. I just want to make sure you keep in mind for our events that come to town, the fees that they are charged. Most of our event promoters are small businesses or even nonprofits themselves. Most of our events, even activities that come and use these facilities, are nonprofits, and they bring economic impact to our city. In regards to specifically to special events, I want to mention one of our promoters, the Rio del Lago 100-mile race. We have a fee of $3 per runner to run on the Johnny Cash Trail. May make sense, may not make sense. Are they running on the entire trail, part of the trail? For that run, the 100 miles, 2.95 miles is on the Johnny Cash Trail. It's kind of an in and out. They require no services from the city at all. Just they process their permit and pay their, there's $1,100 for 390 runners, the $1,140. The rest of the run, 97 miles, is through state parks from Folsom all the way to Auburn. They have to open restrooms, open gates, do all sorts of other activities to help facilitate that run on that 97 miles on state parks, and they only have to pay under $850. So just kind of keeping in mind those types of things when you're considering all these fees. We want to encourage events to come do business in Folsom. The more we have, the more tax money we have to close all these budget gaps. So I would encourage you all to try. I know we have to make money. That $1,500 that they pay is not going to build the Johnny Cash Art Trail, but it could potentially make them rethink wanting to come have that great event in town, which, by the way, 390 runners this past year. Many of them have teams of 4 to 5 to 6 people. They come days before and stay after. It's, great for this city, and just wanted to make sure I put a little plug in for the promoters.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you all.
All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. That does bring up a question, and maybe she answered it in her comments, but there's only a charge for people using the Johnny Cash Trail and not any other bike trail. Is that because of the planned art, or what is the reason for that?
So that started in 2017, is my understanding, once the trail was completed, as a funding mechanism to build out the art experience. It was modeled after what I believe was found at state parks, had a trail user fee, as well as Sac County. And so they determined the $3 for that, and that goes into a specific fund to help generate that. Well, that race also has contributed. Folsom Turkey Trot is a big contributor to that fund. $10,000 to $12,000 annually they pay.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. All right. I'll entertain a motion to focus this discussion, please.
I'll move.
You'll move adoption of item
Oh,
number.
sorry. I've lost my track of where I was reading here. I have too many scribbles on my page at this point. So I will, let's see, this is
Item 10.
Chad. Resolution number 11387, a resolution rescinding resolution number 8792 and adopting a new community facility rental fee schedule with annual adjustments not to exceed the consumer price index.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion?
I have some discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm uncomfortable with the indoor venue fees pretty much across the board. I don't think we're just competing with public facilities here. I think we're competing with the private sector. So I think looking at that analysis would be helpful. I also think we provide a service to nonprofits by giving them some space in order to meet regularly or host events. And I have concerns that we haven't talked to them. I have concerns that we haven't notified them that their fees may be increasing and that they're going to learn about this next week when they read about it in the Folsom Telegraph. So I think for those reasons, I'm hesitant. I've been a long-term advocate of lowering our park pavilion fees. I rented Calethea Park years ago for my own event because it was way too expensive to rent something in Folsom. And at that point, I started arguing to lower our fees. I'm glad we are finally lowering those. I'm very supportive of adding the couple of pavilions that are there. I think the range is appropriate. There are cheaper options around, like Black Miners Bar at state parks. It's $125 for a pavilion. I can rent Calethea and Eldorado Hills for $130. So there are some other venues around that we're not in there. I would love to have seen one or two that were a little lower, but hey, one's $25 and $160. It's close enough. I appreciate that we're lowering it from $250. And I like the staff's consideration of, hey, let's just do it once a day. I appreciate the outdoor venues being added there. I didn't really see any data on those, but we're lowering the fees. I think I'm supportive of that. Really where my challenge is the indoor venue stuff and just making sure we tell people and get their input. And I understand we have deferred maintenance on all of these things. But I think that we could figure out other ways of doing it, right? Peak season, are there a way we can turn things over early in the day? I just think it's, I would be in favor of smaller adjustments too. That would be another way that I could get on board, but they're pretty significant, going for, some of these are 2.5 times, and other ones are a smaller percentage. So I think if we were doing all smaller percentage, I'd get on board, but some of them are just really big hikes overnight, and I just don't think we should do that.
So I have a question for you. So the indoor venues, you're talking about the community service center and
Rotary Clubhouse.
right, and so I'm seeing that it's 20% except for the Rotary is a 30% increase.
No, that's the percent change. That's not the actual change.
That's from the list rate. So from current list rate to new list rate is that percent change.
Okay.
Yeah, so for the ballroom, their percentage is 187 minus 125 divided by 125. So they're getting a 50% overnight increase.
Oh, you're talking about the nonprofits.
The community center ballroom, yeah.
I'll add two things to this discussion for you. One, not related to the resolution of community facility fees, but is in our policy for user fees and charges, is there is a stipulation that Folsom-based nonprofits receive one free fee waiver usage that is of our community facility during the weekday throughout the one given year. So they can use one time that throughout the year. That's why, to your point, Councilmember Rathel, you saw a high use of nonprofits at the community center because we see activation of their use during that midweek time. So we do have that as well. I'll also point out, Councilmember Robar, in that attachment that talks about the current rates to proposed rates, one of the things I struggled with was I could find no methodology as to how they came from a list rate to a resident to a nonprofit in the current rate schedule. It was at one 43% different, another one was 30% different. There was no methodology to figure out how they came to that. Whereas what we're trying to do here is get it onto a system of methodology to understand, well, what's the discount applied to a resident here in Folsom? Well, that's 25%. What's the discount applied to a nonprofit? Well, that's 45% off the list rate, which becomes systematic across the board versus what we currently have, which unfortunately nobody, myself or anybody in staff, really knows how we came about that.
Okay.
But for them, do you realize, that nonprofit rate at the Rotary Clubhouse is 160% increase, right? Without notice, right? If I'm a long-term renter and I get 160% increase overnight without being told that I'm doing it, do you understand how I would probably go find someplace else to rent? Like it's
Right.
like, hey, by the way, thanks for renting for the last 20 years or 30 years or I don't even know how long they've been there.
I think before I would jump to that as the staff member to work with them, again, I'm not in a position to change these fees without a council resolution.
Sure.
So if I go talk to them a week ago, a month ago, I'd be talking to them pre-eventally without even knowing what that's really going to be because I don't have a fee change in front of me from you all.
So I'll move to amend the resolution with a maximum increase of indoor venues by 10%.
Okay.
You have to make a substitute motion because I won't accept that. and
Yeah, I
second it.
won't accept that motion.
Do you have a better suggestion of how we cap the
Saying
increase?
procedurally, you need to make a substitute
I'll make a
motion.
substitute motion to pass resolution number 11387 with a maximum increase of 10%.
I really don't like calculating these by percentages. I mean, for example, we just went through the whole natomization thing, and people's were calculating by percentage what they would be paying. So
I'm just saying the increase would be capped.
That's what I'm
by-
saying, the increase.
Do we have a second for the substitute motion?
I just want to put that out there. If you say you're going to increase it from 10 to 20, it's increased 100%.
So what was your motion again? 10%?
A maximum cap of 10% of, yeah, and I'm open to another number. I'm just coming up with a different strategy to where we don't blindside people.
Well, the only thing I can see that, because you keep saying 100 and over 100%, so that's the Rotary Clubhouse is the only one that I can see that's going over 100%. Am I missing something?
No, that
I
is,
just want to make sure I'm on the right.
that's correct. There's the community center ballroom would be going up 50%. Oh, so it just depends on which rate category you look at, right? I can keep doing some calculator
Well,
math.
because
but-
I'm seeing, okay, so if we, that was my confusion. That's because the list rate, I mean, the current rate for nonprofits is $125 an hour if you take the ballroom. And they're proposing a 20% increase of $187.
No, so that 20%, that's what's
That's a
confusing
discount.
about the.
So it's
yeah,
$187, so that's like,
a 50% increase.
that's not 50%. 50,
$125 an hour to $187 an hour?
right. Okay,
That's
but it's
50%.
below 50%. Okay, sorry.
So I'm
It's
going
like,
to interject here for a second. Just sorry. We have a motion for a substitute motion. We do not have a second, so that substitute motion dies for lack of a second.
Right.
I am going to make a substitute motion that we table this to the next meeting to allow some outreach to regular users of some of these facilities, people who, when I talk about regular users, I'm talking about somebody who uses it weekly, right? And then allow staff to bring this back at the next.
I think I support that.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a substitute motion and a second. Could we call the roll, please?
Councilmember Leary,
Yes.
Rathel,
Yes.
Rohrbach,
Yes.
Kozlowski,
No.
Aquino.
Yes. All right. Next item, please. Thank you, Tom.
Okay, item number 11, I'm afraid also deals with fees. Resolution number 11390, a resolution rescinding resolution number 10697 and adopting a new fee schedule for the Folsom City Zoo Sanctuary.
Good evening, Jocelyn.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Jocelyn Smeltzer, Zoo Manager, here to discuss a proposed entry fee increase to the Folsom City Zoo Sanctuary. As you know, the Folsom Zoo opened in 1963. We're a beloved regional treasure enjoyed by Folsom residents and visitors from all over. We're home to over 40 species of animals and over 80 individuals, some of them listed here like Herbie the black bear, Reggie the raccoon, and Echo the mountain lion. All of our animals, as you know, are rescues that couldn't survive in the wild. So we're here to talk about our Folsom Municipal Code that says the fees for the entrance to the Folsom City Zoo shall be established by resolution of the City Council, and also that all fees shall be collected at the gate used to offset the cost of administering, maintaining, and improving the zoo. And speaking of improvements, there's a photo of one of our volunteer groups. We get corporate work parties, as you know. They've been helping us a lot lately. We really appreciate it. We try to be very aggressive with our entrance fee benchmarking. We review market demand, user trends, competitors, and the cost of service before we come to you with a recommendation. We also make sure our proposed fees are consistent with other regional facilities, both public and private, and recreational opportunities that are sort of similar to the zoo or last about the same amount of time as a zoo visit. You also see some of our camp kids and another volunteer corporate work party. I think that one might be Intel. So we benchmarked, I can't remember, it was about 13 or 15 different facilities. These are just some of them listed here. We wanted to look at places, say, that a family might go to recreate and looked at their fees. We always evaluate regional areas that people might go, and it could be something like a museum or going to the movies with your family. When you see NorCal Aquarium and Wildlife, that's the place formerly known as Sequest, and that's their new name. So the entrance fee increase, of course, over the years since we've been here, we started out free, and we've had many increases over the years. The most recent one was back in October of 2021, where all the fees increased to $7 for all of our guests that are over age 2. So it's definitely time for another increase. We did go to our Parks and Recreation commissioners, and they, in September, unanimously recommended that the Folsom City Council approve our proposed fee increase and also establish a proposed fee range. These are some photos of our visitors lining up to get in on some nice weather days. So what we are proposing is that Changes to entrance fees for the Zoo Sanctuary will be reviewed annually and brought to the City Council in July as part of the annual city fee schedule. The specific proposal tonight, it would be effective July 1st, 2025, so we could have time to get the word out to the public, and that we would increase the entry fee to $10 and then establish a range of $10 to $15 for entry fees going forward. And that gives staff time to review and analyze annually any needed adjustments that we have. Our proposed fee increase would bring in additional $250,000 of new revenue that would not be seen in the budget document you were provided today. We want to be proactive with setting this fee range so that we can increase the entry fee as needed. We want to return to you if we were to go over the $15, but we'll review them annually, look at the consumer price index and all those things that I previously mentioned that we do with our aggressive benchmarking. So our recommendation tonight is that you amend resolution number 10697 and with an adoption of a new resolution to update our entry fee and implement our new fees this coming July 1st. Those photos show some zoo camp kids, which our camps are filling up quickly for summer, and also a photo of one of our wonderful docents. Many of them are in the audience tonight. So I'm available for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Any questions for Jocelyn? Councilmember Rohrbach? Oh, do you have any? No. Councilmember Leary?
Oh, yeah. I'm at the zoo often with my 2.5-year-old grandson. And it seems to me that there are a large number of people there every single weekend, both days. Do you have an average number of attendance?
Yeah, on our busy days when the weather is good, our busy days are 1,000 people. Usually the average is probably lower than that, 600, 700. We also have our big upcoming event, our Black Bear Weekend that's coming up. It's going to be packed. We have Honeybee Weekend coming up in a couple months. It'll be even more packed for those. We're glad that they sort of spread it out over the year. Thursdays and Fridays are super busy in the spring because we have a lot of our school groups. And then we've increased our times to be in the morning. We're opening earlier for summer, so that helps to get people in early because, as you know, when it gets really hot, nobody wants to go anywhere.
And are there fees that the school groups pay?
They are, yes. They pay tour fees, and then the docents lead those tours. So we'll be looking into what those changes would be, to your point with the fees, and giving them lots of notice for that once we see what you guys approve tonight.
Right, and then I understand you're also going to be looking at the annual pass fees.
Correct. The Friends of the Zoo will look at their membership fees as well, and everything will go up a little bit accordingly.
I mean, this is one of the most affordable places to take a 2.5-year-old. It cost me $50 to take him to the Sacramento Zoo between the two of us, so I'm all in favor of this, so thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
I do have a quick. Okay. I don't know if you'll know it, but what do you think your average stay is? When someone comes and visits, are they there an hour or like 3 hours?
Right. So that depends. I'm a member of the Friends of the Zoo. So my kids, once they got to know the zoo, they could power walk through it in, 30 minutes or whatever. But usually it's about an hour. We'll have people who are just really into animals or taking photos, and they might be there 2 hours, or they bring a snack and let their kids eat while they play. So it could be longer. But I'd say about an hour.
Vice Mayor Rathel?
I love the Palladio movie comparison. Thank you for putting in some other options for entertainment that's here. One of the things that kind of just got me thinking about was you have your Tuesday night cheaper movie night at Palladio, right? So I know that encourages. If you go to the theater on a Tuesday, it's packed, right? But if you go on a Monday or a Wednesday, it's very low attendance. So have you guys thought about any sort of approach like that, where you do have a little lower day where you want to pack it in?
We used to do that. We used to have half-price Tuesdays, and then they were getting sort of overwhelming with attendance. And years ago, some of you might remember, we even would have like an annual free day, but that got pretty out of control. It was kind of getting unsafe. We had to really limit that. So, but we can certainly look into some discounts like that, or maybe, sort of a buy one, get one, or things we can do to make it more affordable.
And you don't need any authority from us to do.
Correct, right. Those special marketing things we can totally do.
Awesome. I'm just thinking about getting new people in the door, right, that then come back and pay the regular fee. So long term, it's an investment and getting a new person that wouldn't normally go. So
absolutely. Great suggestion. Thank you.
Councilmember Kozlowski.
Is there a season pass option?
There is, through the Friends of the Zoo. Absolutely, yes.
Glad to hear that.
All right, this is a public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing. Do we have any requests to speak?
Nope.
Then I'm going to close the public hearing and will entertain a motion.
I will move approval of Resolution 11390.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Leary,
Yes.
Raythel?
Yes.
Rohrbach? Yes. Kozlowski?
Yes.
Aquino?
Yes. Zach, thank you for your patience.
Still the greatest bargain in town.
Okay, this takes you to your new business calendar. You have 4 items tonight under new business. The first is item number 12. This is resolution number 11377. This is a resolution adopting a list of projects for fiscal year 25-26 to be funded by SB1, the Road Repair and Accountability Act.
You don't want to stay for the Road Repair Recovery Act? It's really good. Okay,
Too bad they're not going to
next
give you a
time,
big
next time.
check.
Okay. Good evening, Council, Madam Mayor, Zach Bosch, Senior Civil Engineer in your Public Works Department. Tonight, I will be presenting the project list for our SB1 for fiscal year 25-26. The Road Repair and Accountability Act was passed in 2017. It's better known as SB1. It's essentially your gas tax. And monies from those go to fund our critical maintenance of our infrastructure, our pavement rehab, as well as some other items. So each year, we are required to submit a list of proposed projects to the CTC, or California Transportation Commission, by July 1st in order to be eligible to receive and spend those funds. So this presentation will list those proposed projects that we will be submitting to CTC. First off is our citywide ADA compliance project. So these are repair locations of sidewalks within District 4. These have been assessed with a consultant. Each of these pinpoints is a lifted sidewalk or a crack or a project that is eligible for repair with SB1 funds, as well as inspection of District 1. So we repair one district and then we inspect another one, and then next year we do the repairs in the district that we inspected, and then we kind of leapfrog every year. So we're continuously rotating through the city to find and repair and replace some of these cracked and damaged sidewalks. Also is the pavement rehabilitation portion of the project. So we regularly evaluate and prioritize street segments using a combination of pavement scores, roadway usage, and available funding. So for this fiscal year or next fiscal year, 25-26, several streets within Briggs Ranch have been identified through our citywide pavement assessment. Strong candidates for surface treatment, such as Cape seals or double slurry seals. These pavement treatments within these neighborhoods are chosen to prolong the pavement life in a cost-effective and efficient manner. So they're not a full overlay. They're much more cost-effective than that. You get a lot of surface treatments with the money that we're able to spend. So this project within Briggs Ranch is just one of the treatments and strategies that we use to preserve our pavement. Elsewhere in the community, we are implementing crack fill, crack sealing, pavement dig-outs, and full asphalt overlays. So all this selection is done with our data-driven process. So we go out and analyze our pavement surfaces every 5 years. I believe we're due up for a new one next fiscal year. So once that will be completed, we'll have a new assessment of our pavement condition index, our PCI, and we'll use that data to prioritize new locations in the future. So that concludes my presentation on this. I tried to make it as short as possible, knowing that it's procedural and this is just something that we have to submit annually. But I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Zach? This way, any questions for Zach? Any requests to speak? Nope. All right, then we'll entertain a motion.
Well, okay, sorry. I was searching. I'm sorry. Keep going. I was searching for. I know I have some questions in here, but one of the ones was you submitted 4 projects.
No, this is a different item.
Oh, that's why I was confused.
I'm going to be speaking in a couple more.
I was like, why am I so confused?
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll move resolution number 11377.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Raythel?
Yes.
Rohrbaugh?
Yes.
Kozlowski?
Yes.
Aquino?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item number 13, resolution number 11385. This is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an interagency agreement for cost sharing of the Water Forum successor effort and habitat management element budget of the Water Forum.
Marcus, good evening.
Oh, good evening, Mayor Aquino, members of the council, Marcus Yasutaki, Environmental and Water Resources Director, Interim Public Works Director. I do want to thank Zach for being here tonight to cover item 12 that you just saw and soon to be item 14. I'm getting up to speed, but glad he is here to help answer any of these questions. So this item tonight, just want to give you a quick overview of the Water Forum's history, the agreement goals, the original Water Forum elements, the work that we're doing to update the current Water Forum agreement, which is now known as Water Forum 2050, the program areas that are in Water Forum 2050, the new funding formula, and then just a quick schedule. So the history, back in the early 90s when there's a lot of development activity and work for water supply going in and around the American River, a lot of the agencies in the region were fighting amongst themselves, not necessarily water agencies against water agencies, but more environmental groups and water agencies trying to figure out how all this development was going to be supported from a water supply standpoint, as well as how to not harm or do damage to the environmental ecosystem within the region. So a lot of the members from both the Environmental Caucus, the Water Caucus, which consisted of all the water agencies, the Public Caucus, and then effectively and importantly as well was a Public Caucus, all came together and hashed out kind of a long-term agreement at the time, which was originally brought together through the city of Sacramento and the county of Sacramento as kind of the JPA agency, so to say, not effectively a JPA, but those two agencies holding responsibilities for hiring and implementing projects. In the mid-90s, the negotiations began, and then in 2000, the Water Forum Agreement was signed. There were about 40 signatories, including the city of Folsom, and then as I mentioned, you had a Water Caucus, an Environmental Caucus, a Business Caucus, and a Public Caucus. And effectively, this was to achieve two co-equal objectives. One was to provide a reliable water supply for the region through the year 2030, and then preserve the fishery, wildlife, recreational, and aesthetic values of the Lower American River. The original 7 elements in the Water Forum Agreement are shown here. I'll highlight number 3, number 4, and number 7 because I think these have been very helpful for the city of Folsom in terms of the overall agreement in the 25 years that it's been in place. We haven't had a need to increase our surface water supplies given the strong foundation that our pre-1914 water rights are built upon and the Central Valley project that the city has. So the city of Folsom wasn't in this to try to get more water from somewhere. So that effectively applied to other agencies. Actions during dry years, pretty much everybody that's a water agency within the Water Forum Agreement does this. So there's no particular benefit or detriment to the city. It just effectively identifies, okay, when certain year types exist from a hydrologic standpoint, what are various agencies going to do, and how can we convene to talk about the effects of limited water or a lack of cold water per se for environmental purposes. Number 3 was very critical, and this happened several years ago, but it was effectively developing a flow management standard for the amount of water at a certain time of the year that is available to the Bureau of Reclamation to operate. So effectively in September and December, we are trying to target a certain storage volume in Folsom Reservoir, which typically correlates to amount of cold water that's in the reservoir for fishery purposes. And so this flow standard identifies, based on the year type and the hydrologic conditions, snowpack, snow melt, how reclamation will operate Folsom Reservoir for the purposes of meeting the water supplies within the region, but also the ecosystem benefits along the Lower American River. And prior to this, Reclamation did not have an MOU or an agreement with our agencies to effectively try to strive for a certain end of the month storage in September or December. And that was really critical for us because it effectively helps our region get through 2 consecutive dry years without significant impacts from a perspective of us delivering our water supplies. The next one is habitat management. That was the other co-equal objective, or one of the co-equal objectives for the water forum. And we have been able to get about close to $38 million of habitat improvements within the Lower American River, whether that was adding gravel, redistributing gravel for the purposes of rearing and spawning for the different fish habitat, or connecting what they call side channels that would go dry. If you're able to then rechannel those areas, you can connect those, which provide different benefits for different fish species. And we're able to collaborate with the Bureau of Reclamation through what they call the Central Valley Project Improvement Act. And that was critical in reclamation's operations to also develop habitat. So we've been able to collaborate real well with reclamation to bring a lot of these projects together and monetize reclamation funding to get to that $38 million. Water conservation, this was a driver at the time, and it was something that everybody was doing. And then over the years, the state stepped in and said, you're going to do more. Groundwater management, not critical for Folsom in the sense that we're pumping groundwater, but important to the region for those that do pump groundwater. And again, this is another area where the state has come in and said, you must do more across the board. So not a significant impact from Folsom's perspective. And then the water forum's successor effort, that's really the group and the staff at the water forum that implement the projects, that work with the consultants on the data analysis, that work with the Bureau of Reclamation to implement the MOU that the water forum agreement or the water forum has with reclamation. So this is effectively the team that's leading the charge for all of us as signatories. So the updated water forum agreement, or water forum 2050. We started this work in 2020, did take some pauses here and there due to the pandemic, which I think affected many in terms of working on agreements like this, but we've continued to move forward, maybe more slowly than some of us would like, but I think at a correct pace to make sure that we're doing everything in the right direction and doing it all correctly. Some of the main drivers is just in 2025, the regulatory environment is different than it was in the mid-90s in terms of what the state's requiring for water agencies, whether it's water use efficiency, anything that's occurring within the Delta, so the Bay Delta Water Quality Control Plan, and then groundwater management. Those are kind of the big 3 areas that are significantly different than existed in the mid-90s. Changing precipitation and snow patterns, so that has an effect on Folsom storage. Updated science and monitoring, it's different today than what it was in terms of how to analyze the different projects that are implemented, how to record temperatures, how to do the modeling effectively. And then operational challenges at Folsom Reservoir, so just more statewide drivers in terms of where water needs to go for different purposes, ultimately affects how reclamation will operate Folsom Reservoir. So the program areas, there aren't 7 elements anymore. There's effectively 5, but they have a lot of the same function that the original 7 do. It's just they're updated to reflect the current regulatory environment that we are all operating in. So 1 is American River Flows and Operations. That's effectively the flow management standard that I mentioned earlier. American River Corridor Health, that's the habitat management part. So the habitat work that goes in the Lower American River. Regional water supply sustainability, that kind of touches on the dry year actions and the groundwater side of the equation in one of the 7 elements, or 2 of the 7 elements, sorry. Science monitoring and decision support. So we didn't have an effective track record in terms of the science and the data and the monitoring to implement new things as they came along. So this does reflect, okay, here's what we are going to do collectively to ensure that any decisions that are made have some scientific backing to it. And then governing, funding, and administration. So that's the last element. This is what on the right is the proposed funding formula. The left is the current funding formula. So effectively, how the city pays and other water agencies pay is just how many active water service connections you have. They take the total, divide it how many you have, and that's your percentage. The city of Sacramento and the county of Sacramento, since the water forum agreement was signed, they are the only two agencies that have been paying into the habitat management element since its inception. So the city, Folsom, and some others have been able to not pay into this fund, and effectively the city and the county have been paying basically the region's share since the inception. And then habitat costs are adjusted annually per the ENR index that's listed. And so the proposed funding formula effectively makes the distribution of payments more equitable across the region. And the conclusion came to connection counts being 40% of that formula. So it's weighted. Groundwater production is 20%, and then American River diversions are 40%. So we get connection counts, and the American River diversions 20% of zero is zero for us in terms of the weighting for the groundwater, just because we don't pump any groundwater. And then each year, looking back 5 years, that will be the average of each of those three items to basically identify what your next fiscal year budget is going to be. So in terms of schedule, May and June of 2025, this draft agreement that's before you is going to be going to, the draft agreement, in and of itself is being distributed to all of the parties within the working groups. The interagency cost share agreement, which is what's before you tonight, are going to the respective boards and councils for their approval. In the summer of 25, the public draft of Water Forum 2050 will be available for review, with anticipation that in fall 2025, we'd get approval by all the signatories, and then summer of 2030 would be the first 5-year review looking back. That is all the information I have, and we are fortunate that Councilmember Leary has been a part of the Water Forum agreement as well, wearing a different hat than mine. So if she has anything to add, I would welcome her feedback.
All right, thank you. I'm going to start with questions over here.
Are all of the water agencies or water purveyors in the county now going to be chipping in here?
That is correct, yes.
That's it, thanks.
I did want to add quite a bit, but Marcus, you did a great job on that. And it's taken me, 6 years on the water forum to get a hang of what all the acronyms mean. And thank you for not using them tonight, because I think people would be staring into space. But one thing I wanted to point out, and you did cover this, and that was, I think there's been really collaborative work done between the business, the public, the water purveyors, and the environmental groups during this process. And, there's a lot of things that I think people don't understand was what we're working towards. And we discussed this a lot during the meetings that Marcus held last year for the public to go over the Folsom plan for water. And a big piece of what I think will be helpful, and he mentioned that we don't actually pump any groundwater here, is that there is a huge collaborative process taking place whereby water storage is being done conjunctively with other water purveyors in the region, and that's underground storage. And during that process, you don't lose as much water as you do by evaporation in open water storage facilities that are created by dams. And we should have the capability down the line to be storing some water in conjunction with Carmichael and San Juan districts at least, and then in dry years have that availability. And the one thing I also want to point out is that, we talk about saving the environment and making sure that we have a healthy river downstream. The river, in the American River in this county, draws 8 million visitors per year. And so it's actually an economic driver in terms of people, coming here to fish, for tourism, rafting, swimming and other activities that don't take place if you're running a dry river all summer long. So I think there's a benefit from that perspective as well. So I don't know if anybody has any other questions, but it's been a really positive experience. And again, I think that the groups are working together collaboratively to make sure we all have enough water and water to recreate in as well.
Thank you. Do we have any requests to speak on this item? Nope. We have no requests, so we'll entertain a motion.
I'll move resolution number 11385.
We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Raythel?
Yes.
Rohrbaugh? Yes. Kozlowski?
Yes.
And Aquino.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 14 is resolution number 11386. This is a resolution authorizing the city manager to submit an application for funding through the Safe Streets for All grant program administered by the U.S. Department of Transportation.
Thank you, Krista. Yeah. Zach Bosch, City of Folsom, Public Works Department, Senior Civil Engineer. Here to talk about Safe Streets for All grant application that we're considering applying for. I will go over an overview of what the Safe Streets for All program is, because I think it adds context of what projects we chose and why we chose them. So I think there's a little bit of background of the program and why we selected the projects we did. So Safe Streets for All program is a federal initiative supporting the efforts to eliminate roadway fatalities and serious injuries. There's 2 tracks within the program. There's a planning and demonstration portion of the grant, and there's an implementation portion of the grant. The planning and demonstration portion is creation of an action plan that you use for the implementation grants. So it's your basis for the implementation portion of the program. We have developed an action plan. It was our local road safety plan that we adopted last year. So we are using that as our foundation for the implementation. The projects have to be identified within that action plan to be eligible for this grant. Agencies are only able to select one track, and they're only able to submit one project for this notice of funding opportunity, this NOFO. So we have to be very selective in the projects that we go after, and we have to have a lot of basis and data to support that grant application. So this further goes into what the action planning track is versus the implementation track. The planning is more of the action planning is more of a planning document, while the implementation is your physical capital improvement projects.
Can I just stop you right
Yeah,
there?
please
Just
do, yeah,
Before I
yeah.
get confused. So there's 4 projects. I'm on the right one this time. And you're going to ask us to pick one? Because you said agencies select one track, one project.
Yes.
So you're going to ask us to pick one.
I am going to ask you to pick one
Okay.
of the 4. Yeah.
Okay, that
so we're
wasn't
going to
clear.
submit it like a menu, and you can pick.
That helps. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I think that's all the information I wanted to convey on this slide. Back to the grant itself. Applications, we do have a quick turnaround time for this. They're due June 26th. We do have a consultant under contract to perform staff support for application of this grant. They're kind of waiting for the results of this discussion tonight to move forward on the project. But we were able to reallocate funds from our local road safety plan project for this effort. So it's about $1 billion of grant funds available, and you can see the breakdown on the screen there. The implementation portion of the grant is the majority of the funding available, and it's really geared towards your big scale projects, your $2.5 million to $25 million projects that are eligible for this. While the planning and demonstration grants are your quick builds, your easy to achieve results, which is why the expected number of awards is so high there. They really do emphasize the creation of action plans, but since we already have one, we really don't have to go after that. The priorities of the grant, again, are to promote safety and prevent fatal and serious injuries, while installing low-cost, high-impact strategies. Innovation is another big component of it, as well as community and stakeholder engagement. So those are the priorities. And these are the selection criteria within the grant. The first one and the biggest one is the safety need. The problem has to be identified. It has to be habitual. It has to be shown in a high injury network of your roadway. So again, these are all important factors when we talk about project selection. Criteria 2 is your safety impact. The proposed project has to reduce the severity or the seriousness of the injuries. So you look for elements that would reduce those collisions and the severity. Criteria 3 is your engagement and collaboration. So going out and meeting with the public or any other stakeholders and engaging with them to devise a project that they're in favor of. So these are some other elements in the notice of funding authorization opportunity, just really emphasizing what the projects are geared towards. Micro mobility, those are your scooters, your e-bikes. They may not be favorably viewed, but emphasizing roadway safety for all users will be viewed favorably. Access to school or safety of children will be viewed favorably. And then, surprising enough, areas of persistent poverty that have a high birth rate and marriage rate will be favorably reviewed. So this is just from the text of the funding opportunity. Funding and match and budget guidance. This is an 80-20 split from federal funds to local fund match. There is an in-kind contribution, so staff time is eligible for that 20%. If we were awarded, we would obviously catalog our time and use that for eligible funding match. Deadline, from the deadline of application to available funding, we're seeing about a 6 to 9 month turnaround time, just in general. That's from previous years and previous applications. So if we were notified of award, it would be towards the end of this calendar year, and then you would enter an agreement with the federal government and to get reimbursed, and that could be done as early as February of March of next year.
Can you repeat what you said about
Sure.
keeping track of your time and that is calculated towards? Can you repeat that?
In-kind contribution can be calculated.
Towards the 20%.
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
I just want to
Yep.
make sure I heard
Yep.
that right.
So into the project selection. So we use 3 or 4 documents to develop and cross-reference to develop these proposed projects. That is your active transportation plan, which was adopted in spring of 2022. Your local road safety plan, which was recently adopted in 2024. We also use vision plans, so our central business district vision plan, our river district master plan or vision plan, our general plan. These are all elements that we cross-referenced to develop this project list. The projects that we selected, city staff selected, were Natoma Street from Prison Road to Folsom Boulevard, and I'll go into each one in depth so you can understand the scope of each project. The second project was East Bidwell from Coloma to Orchard. Third was Riley Street from East Bidwell to Wales. And the fourth was Prairie City Road from Highway 50 to Alder Creek Parkway. So the first one, in-depth look, is Natoma Street. So this is right out in front of City Hall here, as well as continuing down to Folsom Boulevard. There are opportunities to make that connection from the Johnny Cash Trail all the way down to the American River Parkway on Natoma Street. We have multiple uncontrolled mid-block crosswalks along that corridor, as well as a road that can fit additional features such as a bike lane or pedestrian enhancements, bulb outs specifically, that would narrow the crossing. It would help to reconnect some of the historic district from the southern side of Natoma Street back into the northern side, as well as enhance the bicycle and pedestrian facilities along there.
Would that reduce any parking?
No, parking would still be available along the street. Yeah, we still have enough space to fit both parking lane and a bike lane. So referencing the data to support that, this is from our local road safety plan. We had a few complaints of pain at some of these crossings, mostly motor vehicle accidents. So a fair number, but nothing staggering. So moving on to East Bidwell. East Bidwell is from Coloma to Orchard. This was done in conjunction with the Central Business District Vision Plan down there. So this was a reallocation of existing roadway space. You can see the proposed cross-section on the bottom of the screen there. So it reallocates some of the travel lane width into additional bike lanes. Right now, we don't have bike lanes on East Bidwell. But this project would restripe that to include that feature. We have also discussed through our roundabout feasibility project, both at Coloma and at Glen, potentially including roundabouts there at that for intersection control. And then filling in a missing gap of sidewalk from Coloma to Market Street, as well as removing and replacing some of the older sidewalk on the southern edge of the roadway there, kind of near Folsom Lake.
I'm a little bit confused about the order. You're saying East Bidwell up here, but the second item on this is Riley Street Roundabout Project in your packet, in the packet. So
I'll get to Riley Street on the next.
You're not
Okay.
presenting these in your recommended order, right?
No, not yet.
Okay, this is just.
Okay, but this one is speaking to the third East Bidwell Complete Streets project.
Yes.
That one. Okay.
Correct.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah, and please interject if you have any questions about the scope of the work. But yeah, we see this as a critical gap closure measure for our sidewalk network, as well as a better use of pavement to include cyclists on the road. Riley Street, again, we talked at length about this during our roundabout feasibility portion, but this is that same project, the 4 roundabouts, one at East Bidwell, one at the Coles entry, one at Glen, and another one at Wales. This is the data to support that. This is the crash data from 2020 to 2023. So you can see the density of collisions, vehicle collisions on East Bidwell, as well as Riley Street on your screen there. So both streets have a significant number of collisions along there, with East Bidwell just having a little bit more dense collisions at Wales and at Glen. And this one is the same segments, but for your vulnerable road users, so your bike and pedestrian crashes. So East Bidwell had a couple severes and a couple other visible injuries, and as well as Riley Street had some complaints of pain and some other visible injuries. And finally, the Prairie City Road project. So this is the general plan cross-section below on your screen. This is something that we're not, in the order of projects, this will probably not be at the top of our list because we are working in conjunction with the development community to bring these enhancements through that partnership there. So seeking active grant funds may not be the best avenue, but we certainly had an overlap between our established general plan, the local road safety plan, our active transportation plan. It showed up on that matrix. So this is a crash history on Prairie City Road. Before you tonight is our estimated cost for the projects. So Natoma Street is between $2 and $3 million. It also shows our estimated local match, as well as the funding source for that local match. So these are general high-level estimates, but it gives you an idea of what the project would cost, as well as what we would be obligated to match with funds or in-kind contributions. And finally, this is a matrix I put together, kind of the different plans we looked at, as well as the criteria of the Safe Streets for All grant program. So if you look at this, the first two really are our best opportunity and our most competitive projects to submit on behalf of this project. And due to the density of collisions on East Bidwell, the severity of those collisions, as well as the cost-effective nature of that project, it would be our selection, our recommendation to the City Council to submit on behalf of that project. But I'm happy to answer any questions. But I will leave you with these two. Should we apply for the Safe Streets for All grant? And if so, which project should we prioritize off the list.
Can you go back 2 slides? Just,
Yep.
okay, thank you.
So Zach, I'm going to kick this off. The project that I was surprised that it isn't up there, and maybe it's not eligible, and if so, I'd like to know why, is the Santa Juanita. That's something that, comes up every few years, and obviously there's a history of accidents there. Is that not eligible for this grant?
It certainly would be eligible.
Okay.
Competitive is a different answer, I think, because really we had a couple roadside deviations, people who have driven off the road. But the severity of those crashes really hasn't been serious injury or fatal. So if you're looking at reduction of those serious and fatal collisions through this grant project process, it may not be as competitive as other roadways where we have established history or accident data showing severe and fatal collisions.
Got it. And then my second question is, so when you apply, let's just say we say, yes, we want to apply, we tell you which one, you're applying for full funding, and is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
And is it either all or nothing, or will they maybe come back and say, well, we'll give you East Bidwell Street, but we're only going to give you this much money?
In this program, it's usually full funding
Okay.
or nothing. Yeah, from previous grants that have been awarded, it seems to be full funding for
Got
those.
it. Okay. Vice Mayor Riethel, any questions?
Just a question really on the East Bidwell project. You had that as number 1 on your list. Why is it number 1 and Riley number 2? Was it just the number of accidents really that you feel is going to make it more eligible?
I think the number of accidents that have occurred, the severity of those accidents, we've recently had an unfortunate string of fatalities on East Bidwell, as well as the competitive nature of the cost of the project. I think if you look at both those elements, it makes it just a tiny bit more competitive than Riley Street.
And then are you comfortable? I know we had kind of talked about where the roundabouts make sense to go first. Would you be comfortable moving the East Bidwell Street roundabouts forward? I know when we talked before as a group, it was like, well, the Riley Street one's kind of stuck out as the most likely, but it's really just the availability of this funding that may change that calculation.
I think so. Yeah, I think we're just casting a line out there and we're seeing what hooks. And these are big competitive capital projects. The opportunities to develop a project or program that large is very far and few between. And I think this Safe Streets for All program is one of those opportunities where we can potentially ask for $10 million and get $10 million in grant funding. So I think if you look at it that way, it's probably a good chance for us.
And then last question, you say the funding source for the match is Measure A, but these aren't necessarily new or different Measure A funds than we would normally be able to use for, say, road repair. These would be the same that we could use to offset general fund expenses. So it's still money that we could use for repairs that we would be using on capital improvements.
Yes, and I think there is overlap on East Bidwell specifically because that roadway is in pretty bad disrepair in that segment of road. So there would be a pavement preservation or pavement rehab element to the project, and that's encapsulated in the cost estimate. And that's where you get the ability to restripe the roadway to include bike lanes.
Okay. That makes it probably a little more attractive then.
Yeah.
Because you're getting some maintenance done too. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Kozlowski, any questions?
I don't have any questions.
All right, Councilmember Rohrbach.
Can you go back to the slide around East Bidwell with the data? Yeah, that one.
This is the vehicle collisions and then the bike impedance.
Okay. So this one wouldn't reduce the lanes, correct?
It would
wouldn't
rec-
impact,
Oh, sorry, go
it's not going to reduce the traffic lanes at all.
The number of traffic lanes,
Right.
no, just the width of the traffic lanes.
Okay. And it's including striping. I lost it.
Yeah, it's okay. On the bottom of the screen, it somewhat shows what the proposed
Oh, there you go. Okay.
cross-section would be.
But
And
we're
so-
not asking for a roundabout because that's a whole nother, that's what confused me about this slide. In this grant application, we're not saying, are you going to be saying that we want to put a roundabout in?
It is identified in the local road safety plan as a proposed
For under
roundabout.
10, for 6 to 10 million?
Yes.
But that would reduce the lanes.
Based on the roundabout feasibility within the roundabout itself, you would reduce it down to 1 lane. It would be a 1-lane roundabout. And
Right.
when you exit the roundabout, there's a potential to go back to the 2 lanes. You would just have to narrow
Yes,
it down.
but I
going into
forget
the
how many
roundabout.
feet. How many feet before a roundabout, a single lane roundabout is like 250 feet?
250 feet.
Yeah, on each side to reduce it down to 1 lane, which I don't think improves our traffic situation there. So this is the slide this is the project that I was going to support, but that right there saying potential roundabout, that's a whole nother discussion. And I have grave concerns about that. We had businesses come out and say this is going to, drastically reduce the access to their businesses right in that area. So I have concerns about this one because of that. I mean, if it was the striping and doing all of that, I mean, can we leave out the roundabout in the grant application?
Certainly, yeah.
And do and what else could we do then in that? And I'm not saying leave it out forever, but I don't think we're in a point that if we got this grant allocation for $10 million and now all of a sudden we're going to turn it away because there's going to be a roundabout. I mean, this is a big concern of mine. I feel like we're kind of trying to get something by. Not you, right? You're not trying to, but we had a lot of pushback on the Central District visioning plan and then on the roundabout ideas on East Bidwell because of reducing the lanes from 4 lanes or 5 lanes, however you say it, to 2 lanes for this situation. So I think this is a slippery slope.
There was a lot of angst, if I may, about the potential for roundabouts in that area without an actual road plan being fully vetted. So I would personally like to see us keep our options open. It says potential. If that's the way that it's worded in the grant application, I see no harm in
I think there's
in a potential roundabout so that we can do the engineering that's necessary to determine what the best traffic mitigation
I wouldn't be comfortable
strategies are.
leaving that language in there without public input and them being aware that this is a possibility for a grant. I think we are not being good stewards of representing the people that this would affect with a roundabout.
Madam Mayor, could I ask a question? Zach, when we submit these applications and let's say we're awarded and you go through the design aspect, would we be able to have public outreach at that time about what, I mean, we're considering before we get to 30% or 60% or 90%, would we have the ability to do public outreach to say, hey, this is what we're looking at, and before we get too far down?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, I think it's critical. A project like this, a dynamic project like this that could change the character. I think public outreach and discussion within the stakeholders is crucial to developing a project and a plan that fits the needs of the users out there.
And is that something we can include in the grant application, that one of the cost elements would be public outreach?
Yeah, certainly within the design consultant contract, we could include that scope.
But my question then would be if we choose this grant, this project, and then we receive it, are we going to turn it away? I mean, that would be silly if, because if there's enough pushback.
I guess the follow-up question is, if we say potential roundabout, it doesn't mean we have to put a roundabout, or does it?
I don't think it means we have to. It is a slippery slope because we are applying for grant funds, and if we show an identified location of a proposed roundabout, they may have awarded the grant based on that consideration.
Well, I guess wording matters because we don't say propose, we say potential. So I guess, are we proposing it or are we just posing it as like a possibility?
Yes, you could identify it as a potential location to be evaluated further through the process. And you could ask for a dollar amount that includes that potential roundabout. And if it's determined to be infeasible or not cost effective or not an improvement that the community wants to, you would just reshift and reallocate those resources to something else within the project.
Would it affect our competitiveness?
After the fact, I think once. Oh, after.
I mean, I
awarding?
guess my point is,
Yeah.
are we more competitive if we say, hey, proposed roundabout versus potential roundabout?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, to be honest.
Well, I think to me, the problem is that this was not in the packet at all. So anyone who pays attention to our council
Yeah.
sees the four things and they see the roundabouts on Riley, which is what our direction was. If we were going to look at roundabouts, we look at Riley. They look at East Bidwell. That looks like a great project. But all of a sudden now we're including a roundabout. I don't like that. That wasn't in. Our public doesn't know about it. We know, I'm not the only one that knows this, that there is public people that are concerned about this. And I'm not speaking about the Riley roundabouts. I'm speaking about the ones on East Bidwell. So public is not aware that this is a discussion at this moment, that we may or may not apply for a grant that includes a roundabout on East Bidwell. And I think I have a problem with that.
Okay. Any questions, Councilmember Leary?
Yeah, I had one question about this plan, and I'm actually a fan of roundabouts, and I think it makes it doable. That section of East Bidwell tends to have less traffic on it than the sections of East Bidwell as you head out to Highway 50. So I would not like to remove a potential roundabout for that site, because I think, and this is my question, is doesn't this actually augment the future development of the business district revitalization plan? I think that slowing down the traffic and having that be more of a walkable area was what was envisioned when the city developed the central business district. I think this is a great project. I think the Riley Street's the other best project, and I understand the need to have more public input on this, but I would support this or the Riley Street project, and both of them with roundabouts, as staff feels would be indicated.
If it's helpful to the discussion, when we had the Central Business District Vision Planning document and went through extensive outreach with the committee, there were as many committee members supportive and enthusiastic as there were concerned. And so there was a recognition from the group that we needed more analysis and details to know what that would look like, once it is, engineered. And so there was an agreement to move forward with the word potential roundabout in this location as part of that vision plan. And even though there was, again, as Councilmember Rohrabaugh points out, there were a couple of property owners in this immediate area that were concerned about it. There were also property owners and business owners that were supportive of the concept. So it was it was left in the vision plan as a potential to be further studied. And I think that's what Zach is suggesting with this grant project.
Thank you.
So it seems like to me that this would further moving forward with the revised Central Business District plan. And you had a number of meetings, public meetings at that time. I don't remember how many there were. And that was just completed last year, correct? Thank you.
Okay, we do have one request to speak from the public.
Okay. Loretta Hedinger.
I just want to remind everyone that Natoma Street goes straight through the historic district. And it's not only buildings that we need to be concerned about whether they are historically designed, it's also the infrastructure that the city might complete. The example of what's wrong on Natoma Street is all those rolled curbs. Those are not historic. So any future infrastructure work there, I would hope we would become more historic rather than less historic. So that's my only point, except that who knows whether this grant program will even survive for the next year.
Oh, thank you.
Mayor Keno, if I may just add something real
Oh,
quick.
sorry. Who's talking?
Yeah. Not that this necessarily means that it's the same for this program in and of itself, but in other grants that our department has received for water-related and sewer-related items, we have been able to modify the scope of work after we've received the grant funding. So we have found something that hey, we initially planned for these three projects. Well, two of them were feasible, one wasn't. So we put in a request to modify to say, look, because of these things, we couldn't do this project. Therefore, we want to reallocate the funds to these other two, so long as it met the same criteria as what we applied for. So I don't necessarily know, Councilmember Rohrabaugh, if that necessarily eases maybe some of that concern, but we in water have had grants in the past that we have reflected a change in scope because the circumstances changed, or we found part of the total project we put together, some small portion of that wasn't feasible, and we're able to reallocate. And that may mean, okay, maybe work gets extended further up East Bidwell if that is something that would still meet the grant application requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Interim Public Works Director. Okay. Anybody want to make a motion in terms of, you want to go back to that list, Zach?
Go back to
Can I ask a question about the Prairie City Road alignment? Just, I do share some concerns about our first roundabouts that are actually used by the public, ignoring Plaza Drive. I understand there's roundabouts there, but our first real roundabouts being on East Bidwell and next to a busy school, that the one to the west of that, I think would be challenging too when people don't understand roundabouts. And now you're asking them to queue for school. It's just tough. So I think that was kind of one of my thoughts of the Riley Street being better than East Bidwell, is because it kind of gets the public used to them. I think which roundabouts go first do matter, which is why I'm now going to ask you questions about the this down here. Your main concerns with the Prairie City Road is that there weren't enough accidents?
Well, I think our main concern is that there's an opportunity here to partner with our development community to develop this road.
Sure.
Okay, jump in, please.
Theoretically, there's an urgent need for this improvement.
Theoretically, yeah.
I just look at it and go, hey, the offset's paid by impact fees. So can we go back to your rubric there with your green check marks and your red boxes?
Yeah,
Sorry.
of course.
So the active transportation plan, it's not in the central business district, so I red X. And the active transportation plan, there's not a bike path that's down this road?
I don't know if it's identified as, I mean, it's an arterial roadway. It's probably will have a class 2 bike facility on there.
It may not connect to much
It
initially.
doesn't, I don't know how much further north it would connect to over Highway 50. There may be a better alternative trail project that would fit in its place. But yeah, off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly what element of the ATP was
Understood.
for Prairie City Road there.
Well, how would it work anyway when only half of Prairie City Road is in the city, right? Isn't the center line the divider between City of Folsom property and Sacramento County property?
Yeah, this is the big discussion we're having with Sacramento County and all of our development community, is where the future roadway alignment is going to land within relation to the city-county jurisdictional boundary.
But if the feds pay 80% of it, I'm sure those arguments decrease
Evaporate,
quite
yeah.
a bit
Yeah.
of whose roadway it is to improve.
Right.
I just throw that out as, if we have angst over the other projects, this one needs to get done. I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing out my thought that it may make
what was
more
the
sense.
cost on Natoma Street?
Or
Oh,
what was that?
so Notomo Street was significantly
that was the
less
last
because it doesn't require as much civil improvements. It would be pavement maintenance, restriping, some bulb outs, some curb extensions or bulb outs, and some pedestrian enhancements such as rapid flashing beacons along the corridor there.
I'm also hesitant to commit any Measure A funds that do not go to Empire Ranch Interchange. I'll just throw it out there.
Okay.
If you could draw a big map around the crashes that are happening because of people that are being diverted away from an interchange that should exist, that doesn't, so they're speeding to get down to the other interchanges, can we apply for Empire Ranch Interchange?
Running red lights as well, probably.
Yeah. Can we make that case that there's a safety need to get the interchange?
I also want to remind, we had a priority discussion when we were talking about roundabouts, and it was Riley Street that we were focused on. So I just want to put that out there. Natoma Street, back to Natoma Street. Is this something that the Historic District has been asking for?
No, this was identified in our active
I
transportation
mean, but do you
plan
feel like the
mostly.
public would be supportive of this? Because they're very particular on what changes and doesn't change down there. And I don't have a good gauge of, it's Mike's district, I don't have a good gauge of,
Yeah, I think public
Then
engagement
Thomas
really
Street.
hasn't been up to the level that we would need it to be comfortable. I just know that there's elements there of reconnecting the north and the south historic district,
Right.
pedestrian enhancements. We have a lot of school kids crossing at Scott Road. We have the new sidewalk projects that's going to come down Riley Street, so it can all interconnect better. It's a lot of pavement for people who want to cross into the historic district to get across. And that traffic moves pretty fast. These elements would slow down vehicles and close that crossing distance to.
can you go to that project?
Yeah, sure. So not as detailed as the others, but the general idea is to make it more pedestrian friendly, as well as reconnect the Johnny Cash Trail to the American River Parkway along Forest Street, so from Folsom Boulevard across to Forest. So all those blue dots are uncontrolled mid-block crossings that pedestrians have to find a gap in traffic,
That's
both
true.
directions. It can get pretty dicey there at some points. So
So in line with what you were saying, Justin, about the amount of money, this would be the least effect on Measure A funds, but allow us to have a project that's deliverable and actually improve. It's true, going, down to, if you have to park up the street or during the rodeo times or whatever, or parades and all the things that we go to as council members too, but you're walking in the middle, usually walk in the middle of the street to go down there.
yeah.
Zach, have we successfully applied for and received one of these grants?
No, it's only been in existence for 4 other fiscal years. So it started in
okay.
fiscal year 22 under the infrastructure bill that was passed under the previous administration. So
Got
this
it.
is the 4th year that it's been in existence.
And this is the first time we're applying?
Yes, we did not have a eligible vision plan. I'm sorry, not a vision plan, an eligible action plan
Got it.
until last year
Okay.
with the LRSP. So we were precluded from applying.
I'd like to make a motion and a suggestion. I'd like to suggest that we approve Resolution 11386, right? And prioritize the East Bidwell improvements. And I say that not because I am desirous of having a roundabout at the earliest possible moment, but because that particular stretch of road is one of the least safe places in the city. It is in really poor condition. It doubles down on the grant funding that we got from the Green Means Go program to develop master plan in that area. It gets us towards our goal of improving the central business district aesthetically. And whether we end up with a roundabout or not, the improvements to the sidewalks will once and finally give us a safe way to get to Sutter Middle School by pedestrians. So I would suggest that we prioritize the East Bidwell project in this grant application.
Second.
Can I ask a clarifying
Yes.
question before we vote? Just on this, if we were to remove these 2 roundabouts and just apply for the because I agree with
I
you.
don't want to
think-
preclude us from having a roundabout. I don't want to commit us to having a roundabout, but I won't take an exclusive amendment to my motion.
I'm just asking a clarification because it'll guide how I vote. If we were to take those two out, then it would be still a 2.5. Do we have an estimate of what the cost of the project would be?
Yeah, based on the roundabout feasibility as well as the local road safety plan, I think they had an engineer estimate of around $2.5 million per location for each of those roundabouts. So that's about a $5 million swing if those were removed from the project. So again, it takes it from a very heavy civil project to a roadway maintenance and a striping project, as well as some sidewalk enhancements, remove and replace sidewalk, as well as installation of new gap closure sidewalk. So it becomes a lot more cost effective.
I'm not a civil engineer or roadway designer, but I feel like there is real significant reconstruction that's necessary in that area in order to achieve the goals that we're after. And whether you do a roundabout or not, that's going to be a really expensive stretch from Glen to Coloma, because introducing the sidewalks is going to change the path of the road and introduce all kinds of issues with utilities and everything else. So people, signs, parking spaces, everything. So there's going to be that's going to be it feels like that will be a very complex problem. And I wish you great luck. But I wouldn't say that we're going to save $5 million by not doing roundabouts.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
No, I want to say a few things. I think that we're making a mistake if we're going to support roundabouts, as we already said was our priority was on Riley Street. So now we're going against our priority. Then I think we should do Riley Street. I think that we're causing more division within our city and the visioning plans that we've created than we are cohesiveness. This should be a positive thing. So we're already going against what the council already prioritized. And I appreciate what Pam John says. There's many enthusiastic, which is true, but as concerned, and that's what I'm talking about, the division. This diagram on the bottom shows 2 lanes, and my concern is that whole area would be 1 lane, and it's absolutely the area that people were concerned about because they don't have interconnected driveways. And so if you can't get in, you have to now go all the way to one intersection and turn around, come to the other, and people just will not go. Folsom Lake Bowl, for example, is putting in a couple $1 million, $1 million or $2 more dollars in investment in their thing right now. I think they've already turned in an application or they're getting ready to. And this will directly impact them. If we got the grant, we're not going to take, so this is all, only relevant if we were allocated the grant. We're causing more division in our city when we have 3 other options that are viable. We have no public input on this. I just don't think we're being good stewards.
No public input is not the case at all. We had an entire process.
They don't know that
to
this
work
is on the
Central
council
Business
agenda
District.
right now. We absolutely do not have public input right now. They do not know that this was on the agenda. It was not stated in the agenda packet. That is the main problem I have with it. We had already had public input on where our priorities were, and we chose Riley Street as the priority for a roundabout. I have nothing against a roundabout. I do have a problem with reducing East Bidwell to 1 lane, so on each side. So I wanted to state that. So that's my issue.
Is the program here to reduce the 5 and bike lanes that are literally shown on the screen to 1 lane each way?
If we're consistent with the vision plan, we would keep it in 2 lanes in each direction with a center turn lane in the middle. Now, near the roundabouts, we would reduce
You
it down to
don't
1 lane,
need the
but within.
left turn lane at the roundabouts. So
You
that
would reduce the lane.
becomes an
You would
island
go
right
from.
there.
We've already talked about roundabouts. Would be a single lane roundabout. So you would have to filter 2 lanes going 1 direction, 2 lanes down to 1 lane, 250 feet or more before the roundabout. And those driveways would be closed. So you have to go in. And so you're reducing East Bidwell from 2 lanes to 1 lane, 250 feet before that roundabout, before the other roundabout. So that entire thing would be probably 1 lane, 1 lane in 1 direction. So that is the concern these business owners have. They also, again, they have no connectivity, unlike Riley Street, which you can turn in to outside of the post office. You can turn in,
like Rayleigh's down there and then go to the next block without getting back on the street. So there's connectivity. This is older and does not have the connect. You can see right there, there's no connected driveways. So these are the concerns that were brought up. My concern is that this was not in the agenda packet, that there was potential roundabouts. And I don't think that we are, just like we postponed the previous thing to get input with businesses, I think that if we're going to include Riley's, if we're going to include East Bidwell on this, that we need to get their input. We got lots of input before on Riley, and that's what, on choosing Riley as the option for us as a priority to put in roundabouts, and now we're going against that. I also have a problem with that too. So
Even
I don't
though
need
we
to get in an
discussed
argument.
Riley.
I've shared my opinion.
Okay. I'm sorry, but even though we've discussed Riley as a priority, we still had roundabouts on East Bidwell here. Roundabouts actually keep the traffic moving. It's something that people aren't used to, but they are things that work. And I think it's best if we leave that option open, because if we don't construct this section as it was envisioned for the improvement plan for the central business district, we're going to be going back and spending more money to revise this again yet in the future. So we
All
have
right.
to take a step forward.
We've got a motion and a second. Please call the roll, Krista.
Councilmember Leary,
Yes.
Raythel,
No.
Rohrbach,
No.
Kozlowski,
Yes.
Aquino.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. All right, final item, please.
Final item to this evening is item number 15, resolution number 11392. This is a resolution authorizing the city manager to hire an arborist to support citywide tree protection and planting services, and authorizing the appropriation of funds from the Tree Planting and Replacement Fund, which is Fund 226.
Thank you, Mayor Aquino, members of the council. Pam Johns, your Community Development Director. And I know it's a late hour, and so I won't belabor the point. We're in front of you to ask for a second arborist position to be funded out of the Tree Mitigation Fund, not the general fund, but the Robust and Replenishing Tree Mitigation Fund. And the reason we're asking for that is because trees continue to be a priority in this community, a defining character of the community. And 30 years ago, your predecessors on the city council adopted a tree preservation ordinance and established a tree planting and replacement fund. And the activity associated with that preservation and planting has just grown year over year. And we have been before this council asking for refinements to both of those to make them usable and friendly and workable as we navigate through the implementation. We recently adopted updates to our both our fees for arborist-related services, and those have resulted in a more full cost recovery situation for arborist services, but we are at a point where with one arborist, we can no longer keep up with all of the services associated with our tree planting and replacement. So I want to spend just a couple of minutes making sure you all understand the breadth of what those services include. So it's plan review, permitting and inspections for all projects that involve trees for community development, parks and rec, environmental water resources, and public works departments. This includes development activity, capital improvements, and special projects. The arborist also does landscape plan review and irrigation review to make sure we're in for qualifying projects, to make sure we're in compliance with state water efficient landscape ordinance. That includes a reporting component. She is involved, Amy Nunez, in all code enforcement cases and public safety concerns that involve protected trees in the city. She manages the Sac Tree Foundation contract that you all authorized about 5 years ago to have them take on the proactive arm of planting projects, because that's their expertise and the breadth of their services. She oversees our landmark tree program, which includes not just bringing new landmark tree projects to the city council, but working on the maintenance of those landscape or those landmark trees in perpetuity. She's also oversees the city's veg management program for all utilities. So the famous Oak Parkway Trail corridor tree removal. That is something that that Amy is responsible for oversight and coordination of. So like many of community development services, we have a baseline staffing and we utilize on-call contracts. We have certainly done that for arborist services. The entire tenure that I've been here, almost 8 years, we have utilized some form of on-call contracts. It simply hasn't been enough. So we're fortunate to have temporary part-time staff, Joe Benassini initially, and then Jim Schubert, who are retired annuitants that have helped us half-time over the last almost 5-year period. And they are now phasing out and retiring and moving on. And we just simply cannot keep up with the services. So I've said to many of you, when our electronic permitting system turns red, our dashboards are red, it means we cannot meet our target review times. And that has been the case for our wonderful arborist for many years now, where it's very hard to keep your head above water and stay above water when we have the volume of work that we have. And so I want to show you just the workload. This is all in your staff report, but the volume of work, even in 2024 for our arborist, is just unsustainable. So in finding Amy the support she needs, we've been talking about getting a second full-time arborist. This is the third time through the budget process that we have requested it. In the past, there have been concerns about utilizing the tree fund as something that may not be replenishing and ongoing. And so we've brought the data to you to show that, in fact, that is a robust funding source. It is a replenishing funding source. And if needed, we can cut back on some of the planting work and things like that to ensure that this is a sustainable, ongoing fund for a second arborist. We have two sources of revenue. One is pay for services, which is the plan check permits and inspections for all development-related activity or utility corridor work, things like that. And then the tree mitigation fund is where for tree work or removal of protected trees, the fee goes, the impact fee or in lieu fee for that impact gets paid into the tree mitigation fund. So I just want to show you what those two service fees look like. So for pay for service, this includes things that are exclusive to the arborist and also where there's landscaping or tree work that is part of an engineering entitlement or building entitlement where a percentage of the fees goes to the arborist. So this source of this data comes from our ComDev or eTrackIt permitting system. You can see it's a couple $100,000 every year just for arborist related services. The tree mitigation fund is also robust in terms of the revenue that we're seeing over the last 5-year period, and the fund balance remains over $1 million, even though we're spending it down with planting and irrigation associated with that planting. So our current fund balance is just over $1.4 million, and what we're asking the City Council to do is to approve about $140,000, $150,000 annually for a second arborist to be paid for out of this tree fund. According to the Folsom Municipal Code, this is a qualifying expenditure of the tree planting and replacement fund. And so we are respectfully requesting that the City Council approve this, the city manager to hire a second arborist using the tree funds that we have. And I'm happy to answer any questions. And Amy Nunez is also here in case you are interested in any details about the work she does on any given day.
Questions to my right?
We should have a like a seat, like at a university, that has somebody's name for this particular job, like the Johnny Appleseed Chair of the City of Folsom. Yeah.
Johnny
I love
Appleseed,
it.
Urban
Yes, we'll do
Forester.
it. Yes, absolutely.
The Sac Tree Foundation contract is still working as expected.
It is. We are struggling actually just to find appropriate locations for them to do the significant planting. So they've been doing a couple other programs like Proactive Neighborhoods program where they go out to underserved or undertreed neighborhoods and get community planting activities, or what you've seen on Community Service Day where there's they're helping organize the planting project or educating people about pruning and things like that to help preserve the existing urban canopy.
Thank you.
Questions?
No, I just want to move that Resolution 11392, resolution authorizing city manager to hire an arborist to support citywide tree protection and planting services, and authorizing the appropriation of funds from the tree planting and replacement fund.
Thank you. Second, Mr. Rathel?
Do we need public comment?
We don't have any.
Oh, second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Leary?
Yes.
Rathel?
Yes.
Rohrbaugh? Kozlowski?
Yes.
Aquino?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, this takes us to our brief city manager reports and brief council comments. Mr. City Manager.
I just want to thank the council for the budget workshop. I apologize for that and this. But appreciate a number of folks who were from the public who came and participated in that. I look forward to speaking about the budget more on June 10th. And just wanted to recognize our police chief, Rick Hillman, who announced his retirement coming up. He's been in law enforcement for, I believe, 40 years, with the city of Folsom for 30. We'll have an opportunity to formally recognize him at a future date, but just wanted to congratulate him on that announcement. Speaking of trees, the city of Folsom was named as Tree City USA recipient for the 19th straight year. So that's pretty exciting. And then I had the privilege to go with Mayor Aquino to recognize 3 of our public works staff who earned regional APWA awards, Zach Bosch, Ryan Neves, and Ryan Chance. It was really neat to be there with them, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Kozlowski.
Just one thing, and you reminded me of it while we were talking about the trees and needing places to plant them and some of the other discussions we had earlier. I would really like it, I know that this is probably not a super high priority, if we could take a look at our western boundary, north to south of the city, and maybe just do an analysis of a strategic expansion along Prairie City and north of the river on our western edge, to clean up some engineering responsibilities for Prairie City Road, for instance, to potentially capture some of what is not planned for residential on the Aerojet property, so south of the bottom half of the Aerojet property, along Prairie City, as a potential place for Folsom to have a light industrial area for development, which we don't have right now. And if we're going to make the improvements to Prairie City, it will be it'll be really useful to be able to get to and from everywhere on Highway 50. And then on the north side, we have some boundary issues with the county that have always been weird things that seem like they could be cleaned up along Santa Juanita, where we only control part of the road. There's a little strip that's the county, and then there's Placer County immediately north of there. The intersection on Oak Avenue, the double intersection at Santa Juanita, which is insane with the 2 stop signs that are like 100 feet apart. And then some of the area along Main Street, just immediately west of the city when you get down by Greenback and Madison, which is more Folsom than some other parts of Folsom. So anyway, it's a little free thinking exercise that I hope that we can do sometime, potentially this year.
Vice Mayor Rathel.
Thanks for sticking it out tonight, Amy, for that very last item. I appreciate it. Thanks for all you do for the city. And thanks to you, Brian, and all the city staff that contributed to the budget workshop this afternoon. I thought it was a great kickoff, and I look forward to the discussions over the next month as we figure these things out. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Rohrbaugh.
Just on an item earlier with the kids play park, I already stated this and you already said we could make it happen, and make sure that any proposals are also included in the agenda packet. And in light of the previous discussion, make sure that if it's, that there's more information in the agenda about an item or a grant application than less. I think that we just did a disservice to our public, regardless if it passed or not, or would have been unanimous. We did not have all the information in there. And I do want to say thank you for the budget workshop. I think the public, I already heard from 2 different people that they were impressed with your knowledge of the budget and the changes that you're making, especially with the true-ups and things like that. So, thank you for doing that. And I was happy to see, I was surprised a little bit to see so many people there, but there was a lot of staff there too. So it did look really full because of that too. But I know that those people there were probably coming with a critical eye, and I think some of them were very impressed. So thank you for that and all the work that staff had to do.
Councilmember Leary?
Yeah, and I appreciate the budget workshop as well. I thought the turnout was great. People had some good questions and suggestions, and I appreciate the work you did to put together 2 different nights where people in Natoma Station can come and learn about the plans for the lighting and landscaping district. This is just a reminder, if you all live in Natoma Station and you're watching, there's one more meeting tomorrow night at 6 o'clock here in City Hall. We had a great turnout, about probably 70 at least people last week. And I appreciate Mr. Whitemeyer's work on getting these things together and making himself accessible to the public. I think it's really important. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And I just have one quick thing. I would appreciate if the city manager and Parks and Rec director, if you could touch base with Superintendent Eric Swanson at Folsom Cordova prior to your planning Parks and Rec Commission meeting on the sequencing of parks south of 50, because they have gone out for RFP on the 3rd elementary school. For many years, it was thought it was going to be the up in Russell Ranch. Now they're talking about the Oak Avenue Parkway area. So I think that will be germane to our conversation in terms of sequencing our parks. So it's 9:50. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
If that's the case, that's the